And, it was big. It was a pretty big explosion. Even though I know you don't see a huge debris field, it blew out all the back windows of those patrol cars, and it killed what appears to be 3 people, what appears to be 3 LA County Sheriff's deputies. So I'm sure there's going to be an in-depth investigation to figure out how something like this could happen and to make sure it never happens again.
Okay, and that was the video we were able to show you from earlier. Bruce Thomas, our law enforcement expert, is also with us. And Bruce, how is this? I can only imagine how this affects the community of officers that are with the Sheriff's Department. This is going to have a ripple effect emotionally, I would think, and then you also have to have the investigation. So you're going to have your fellow law enforcement investigating, at least in part. You're probably going to bring in ATF as well. But how does this go throughout the Sheriff's Department, something of this nature, this intense?
Well, one, it's just so horrific, and obviously our hearts and thoughts and prayers go out with all the men and women assigned to, as Scott said, Biscuit Center, as it was called. These are probably some of the most highly trained and experienced personnel on the Sheriff's Department. And for them to deal with some sort of explosive device like this, like Scott said, and what we see on the footage, it comes out of a trailer. Usually, if anything like that, they have some sort of containment vessel, meaning, they put the explosives in that so that it is rendered safe. Most of those trailers have the robots, the Andros automatic robots that are remotely controlled. So what happened? Once again, we don't want to speculate, but it was powerful enough, as Scott said, to blow out several vehicle windows and kill possibly up to 3 personnel.
Bruce Thomas, giving us a bit of a perspective from, as a former law enforcement person, what it's going to be like. And John Gregory now joining me in studio here. And John, it's just, Scott's called it unprecedented. And yes, we had that LAPD incident in 2021, but it's nothing like this. Yeah, and it was nothing, it wasn't like this on a site like this.
A complete shock. And it looks like from the scene, this looked like they maybe were doing some routine work, because it doesn't look like it was any kind of a hazardous situation they were dealing with. Maybe they were moving some material, and they had this horrible explosion occur. And as Scott mentioned, we think maybe 3 people dead, possibly sheriff's deputies, and it is tragic and unheard of. You mentioned the incident with LAPD a few years back, and that was a special vehicle they were using. They put the explosives they confiscated from home into that special vehicle. Apparently somebody miscalculated on the explosive potential of that material, and that's what led to that accident. But this looks like a very different situation. I don't see one of those special vehicles with a containment vessel there. It looks like a bomb squad van or truck that they were using. And Scott mentioned that ramp, so maybe they were moving something down that ramp, and boy, this terrible explosion occurred. And boy, what a shock. Yeah, I can't remember anything like this.
And then even as we watched it at its beginning, it just was a gut punch to us here as well, because it is an incredibly graphic scene at the earliest moments that Scott joined it, because the officers, the bomb squad techs or whoever this was. Well, let me preface that by saying we don't know the role that the uniformed personnel played in this, but it did appear that they were sheriff's employees. Right. There is a third person who was a little bit away from where Scott said the explosion happened. But it's devastating for us, even as we see this, and I can only imagine what it's going to be for the community of officers there. We do want to let you know, as we're streaming here at 8:22, we're coming up on some things that we're going to have to do on ABC7, and we are going to twist over to that for a moment. We'll pause when we get to that moment so that John can do the cut-in for ABC7 during Good Morning America. That's 3 minutes away, so we will continue our coverage here. And you can, John, this is the first time I've actually started to see officers or personnel moving around within the area that they have taped off. Because until this moment, it has been, you could see just this empty space as they, I believe, really tried to secure that area. And this is the first time I've begun to see some people milling about.
Well, Philip, you mentioned they're in that space, but they're staying behind that tape. which makes me wonder if there's still a dangerous situation here. It looks like they're being very cautious about entering that space where those victims were hurt or killed. And so it is another issue to think about. Maybe this danger is not quite over yet, and they're still kind of investigating exactly what happened. There are a lot of unknowns.
Well, yeah, I mean, again, we don't even know if they were transporting explosives that they got somewhere else, or if these were materials used to make other volatile items safe by exploding them. So it could have been their own explosives that went off at this point. If Bruce is still with us, Bruce, we have about a minute and a half here. What would the timeline be for today? I mean, how will they know that they have secured this area before they can start going in and truly investigating?
Well, one of the first things you see with the yellow tape or the crime scene tape is they're trying to render the area safe. Like you said, what was the explosive? Was it an in-house type explosive, or were they transporting something else? Usually if they have some sort of explosive, they'll take it up to Wayside, which is the jail facility up north in Castaic, and detonate it up there. They have areas on that range, so to speak. So in this case, you don't want to speculate. Obviously something tragically went wrong, but it seems like it was an in-house type of explosive.
And Bruce, do you know what kind of material they use to detonate other explosives? Is it C4 or something like that?
Well, they do have other charges. I'm not going to speak to that because I'm not an expert in the bomb squad, but I can tell you they do have other explosives to render things safe. But in this case, it could be anything.
Okay, Bruce, thank you very much. We are 30 seconds away from that quick break that I mentioned a moment ago. So again, we are following breaking news about a deadly explosion at Sheriff's Department training facility, likely involving their bomb squad. It does appear as if 3 Sheriff's Department employees were killed in this accident. We are going to break away, and it is going to be Rachel Brown that is going to do our work on ABC 7. We will be right back.
This is Eyewitness News with live breaking news.
Good Friday morning to you. I'm Rachel Brown. We begin with breaking news in Monterey Park, where there's been a deadly explosion. Scott Reif.
Yeah, Rachel, tragic incident here at the SEB compound of the LA County Sheriff's Department. It looks like this explosion occurred in the lot where they housed the bomb squad. It happened around 7:20 this morning. We were overhead around 7:30, and it appeared we could see at least 3 people had been killed. We don't have confirmation, but it did look like all 3 were more than likely LA County Sheriff's deputies. Exactly what went wrong, we have no idea at this point in time. We're not getting any information from the Sheriff's Department or from the fire department. LAPD has actually sent their bomb squad to the scene. We saw a pretty good sized explosion blow out all the windows of the patrol cars you see in the front of your screen there, but it looks like the explosion occurred off of a ramp from one of the bomb squad vehicles and sadly killed those 3 individuals. Right now we're trying to get more information as to what may have happened, but certainly it's unprecedented. We haven't seen something like this at the Sheriff's Department bomb squad ever in my experience, and certainly there'll be a long-playing investigation. Rachel?
Okay, Scott, thank you. Awful story that we'll continue to follow all morning long.
This is Eyewitness News with live breaking news.
Welcome back to our breaking news coverage of this deadly explosion at the Sheriff's Department training facility. I'm Philip Palmer along with John Gregory. Scott Reif is in Air 7 HD, and also Bruce Thomas, our law enforcement expert, are here where 3 people apparently have died after an explosion on the Sheriff's Department training grounds. We have a crew on the way. Monica D'Anda is going to join us in a few moments. We also have some ground images that we're getting, but we're going to start with Scott Reif, who is over the scene. And again, Scott, for those people just joining us, you were above this very early on in the process.
Yeah, fortunately, we were right at the helicopter when Marcel actually heard the call, and we came immediately to this location. Now they put up a flight restriction for us, and we can't get any closer than we are now. But tragically, when we got overhead, 2 of the 3 bodies were not covered at that point in time. And from what I could tell, they appear to be LA County Sheriff's deputies, and the explosions were pretty brutal. It looks like they probably died instantly after that explosion. Now, all the patrol cars you see down there, we talked about that a little bit, Philip, the back windows were blown out. And this is the SEB yard. This is the Special Enforcement Bureau compound of the LA County Sheriff's Department, and that's where they house the bomb squad. An interesting factor right now is it looks like the LAPD is sending their bomb squad, and that very well could be because most of the equipment that they have for the Sheriff's Department is housed in that area that they don't want to approach yet. They don't know if there may be another explosion. They don't know if there's still some threat here. So they're really not approaching that area where the explosion occurred, and they may use some of the equipment from the LAPD's bomb squad to go ahead and get in there and assess the situation. That's speculation on my part. I didn't get any information that I just gave you from anyone. It's just what Marcel and I have been discussing based on the fact that LAPD bomb squad, it appears, has responded to this location. But it is a tragedy. Certainly, it's going to sting. There's no question about that. To lose what we believe are going to be 3 sheriff's deputies. I mean, it appears pretty obvious 3 people were killed. From what we saw when we were able to get right overhead, there were 2 bodies that we could see, and then another body covered at that point in time. We weren't able to confirm that they're LA County Sheriff's deputies, but certainly a tragic, tragic incident, and we've never really seen anything like this before at a bomb squad facility.
No, it is terrible news, Scott. And you mentioned that they may be bringing the LAPD bomb squad in. That kind of makes sense to us from what we're seeing of that scene. Everybody's staying very far back, staying behind that police tape. And it does raise the possibility that perhaps there are more explosives they're concerned about, and they need other experts to come in this case, the LAPD bomb squad, to evaluate the situation and to clear this scene before they can do anything else. As you mentioned, it looks like all 3 victims died instantly. So there doesn't appear to be any effort to, resuscitate anybody at this point. But it certainly is tragic news as this unfolds for us in Monterey Park. Let's go back to Scott.
Yeah, John, as I was saying, they may need, like, the robot from the LAPD to go in there and take a look at everything, because I believe the robots that they have, the LA County Sheriff's Department, are inside those vehicles that you see there, inside the vans. Speculation on my part completely, but that's just one of the things that we're looking at this. You look and say, well, that may be a possibility. When we were directly overhead, it didn't look like there was anyone else that had been injured. We were there quickly. We didn't see anyone being treated. We didn't see anyone scrambling around trying to get to someone. The fire department had really just arrived on scene when we've gotten there. They'd already started to set up some tape and evacuate the area. So when we got there, it was pretty much evacuated. They hadn't even moved in yet to cover 2 of the 3 bodies, the 2 that were right next to where the explosion occurred. So we don't believe there's anyone else injured in this incident, although, you never know until this investigation gets going. But what a tragic, tragic incident. And it appears that it happened at the end of the ramp. We're all the way in because the Sheriff's Department has kicked us out to 3 miles or 5,000 feet with a TFR, a temporary flight restriction. But at the end of the ramp, it looks like almost like a cart was being pulled down, and the explosion blew from that cart towards us. It didn't blow back towards the bomb squad vehicles or the vans or those trucks. It blew towards us, and it blew out all the windows behind those patrol cars. Sadly, the 2 individuals right next to appeared to be the sheriff's deputies right next to where the explosion occurred. It appeared they were killed almost instantly. They were both face down when we got here, and then there was a 3rd body maybe 40, 50 feet on the left side of your screen next to that van. It was covered when we got here, and possibly that individual was closer and was able to walk away, but unfortunately they did not survive.
Okay, Scott. And Bruce Thomas, our law enforcement expert, is still with us. And Bruce, we just mentioned LAPD bomb squad is probably going to be needed in this to help secure this environment, but it also leads to the sad reality that there's going to be a long-playing investigation here. And this will be multi-agency, correct? They will probably have to bring in ATF. I would think that this investigation is going to have several different entities.
Yeah, it's going to have multiple layers. Talking about what Scott was saying, whenever you have explosives, you have positive and negative pressure, meaning the explosive sucks everything in and then blows it out. So the individual that was away from the trailer suffered injuries that were just catastrophic from that pressure. But like you said, it is going to be a multi-layered investigation. You are going to have ATF. Most of the vehicles involved in this are in the crime scene, so they're asking for mutual aid, in this case, LAPD, arson explosives, and you'll have ATF and the FBI. And this is a tragic, tragic investigation and incident.
And Bruce, we've seen in the past when you're dealing with the bomb squad, they are meticulous, they take their time. This is going to be an incredibly lengthy investigation, it sounds like, before we really know exactly what happened.
Yeah, you have the fire department there, and they're staging behind their vehicle. How safe it is at this point is unknown. However, when something like this occurred, and in this case it occurred early in the morning, the personnel are just not on scene. So they're asking all hands on deck. All deputies assigned to arson explosives are rolling in code 3. You have LAPD responding also from their residence or from their training facility. And then also they're spinning up ATF and FBI.
Well, as we bring in Scott Reif again, because I want to ask Scott, because he was so early on this scene, and we periodically have been showing you video from earlier. Scott, we talk about it seemed as if a cart was being removed from the truck. Is it possible, because it was so early and we're just getting a day started in many cases, we really don't even know if they might have been putting that material on to the vehicle or in the process of going in that direction, right? I mean, there's so much unknown, but from your visuals, from what you saw, was there any way to know if it was coming off or going on?
No, there really was no way to tell at all. The way the ramp was there, the way the direction it looked like the cart was headed, but I mean, my goodness, there was an explosion there, so it could have flipped around several times. So it was just pure speculation on my part that they maybe were taking it off, and it appeared like it was a cart. But certainly, when something like this happens, the horrible accident like this, it's usually because a procedure has not been followed, because they have procedures that are so stringent and so strict in situations where they handle explosives. That's why it's unheard of to see something like this. So it is very early in the morning. You can derive from that what you want. It's a little earlier than you would see most of the bomb squad deputies here. So is it possible that there was someone else moving some packages around that weren't supposed to, or they're moving a package that wasn't identified properly? I don't believe they just have random workers in here. I believe they only allow sheriff's deputies to work in this compound. But all these kind of questions are going to have to be looked into. You know that it's going to be extremely thorough. I mean, obviously because it's so tragic to lose 3 deputies like this, but obviously because no matter what, we can't see this again.
Right, right. One thing we do know, we don't know of any activity prior to this involving the sheriff's bomb squad. We didn't hear of any calls overnight that they may have been involved with or anything like that. That doesn't mean they weren't, but there was nothing obvious in terms of our news coverage this morning that would indicate that they were doing anything this morning. So that leads us to believe this probably was something on site already.
Right, and that's to my point about possibly loading the vehicle. I mean, this could have been a routine, and I hate using that word, this could have been operations of preparing for the day and something catastrophic happened. But I do notice as we see this scene, it is a large area that they are trying to secure now. If you look at that crime scene tape and how far away from the initial point of the explosion, they have really moved everyone back. It makes you think that they don't, clearly, they still don't know what exploded. They don't know what led to this. That is so early in the investigation. And so we don't know if it was items being moved that might still be there. That is what the LAPD bomb squad is going to be taking a look at. Right.
And Scott mentioned the direction of the blast. It appears the vehicles closest to where the victims are don't appear to have a lot of damage. It's the patrol vehicles across the parking lot that suffered the damage. So maybe this was some type of directional explosive, something that they do use to detonate fireworks or something like that.
And we talk about the time of day. We'll bring Scott back in on this because he was the one that he knows about this a little more. But can you imagine if this was noon or 10 a.m. or a shift change where you had multiple people in that lot? I mean, Scott, we talk about how catastrophic this is. It's not a jump to say it could have been worse.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Oh, no question. Yeah, that's frightening. I mean, you spin the clock forward 3 or 4 hours, even 2 hours, and more than likely you're going to have a lot more sheriff's deputies in this parking area, in this compound, walking through that area. So it certainly could have been worse, but boy, to lose 3 deputies like this is just heart-wrenching. I mean, it's going to send a chill through the department. There's no question about that. You know, they're one big family, if you know anything about the sheriff's deputies, and they're all going to feel it. As you mentioned, there's just no way to know. I mean, it's pure speculation on our part, what they were doing down here. We can only go by the bits and pieces of what we have seen and sort of try and tell you what our opinion is, but certainly we're going to have to wait for some time before we get actual specifics. And you guys both know, John and Philip, a lot of times what you see and what you think makes rational sense, it's just the opposite when the details come out and when the facts come out. So we basically really don't know what happened here. We can only describe the scene. You can see they've shut down some of the streets. That's Sheriff's Way. Sheriff's Way angles around this whole compound, this SCB, the Special Enforcement Bureau of the Sheriff's Department. SCB basically is a SWAT, the Special Enforcement, or SWAT. Most people know what SWAT is, and that's their compound right there. And then the area where the explosion occurred was a portion of the compound that houses the bomb squad. So the closures of the streets here aren't really going to affect any traffic in the area. It's not going to affect the community. There's no sense that they're concerned about any hazardous materials or anything like that. But they got a long way to go. They got a long investigation.
Yeah, and as Scott mentioned, this happened perhaps around 7:30, we think. Air 7 happened to be in the area when it happened, so they were there very early on. And it's safe to say the Sheriff's Department is still coming to grips with this tragedy. We're hoping to hear some kind of statement from Sheriff Luna at some point. No word right now on a press conference. And that's put us in this position where we just have to look at the scene and look at the outcome of what happened and try and piece it together until we do get some official confirmation on exactly what happened.
Well, Bruce Thomas is still with us as we await our reporter on the scene, which is Monica de Anda. We have her camera up. You can see that live shot there on the right. But Bruce, I wanted to ask a question. You know, we talked about...
Real quick, Philip, there's the LAPD bomb squad coming in, so that's...
Yeah, that's
new.
the live picture on the right there that we were talking about from Monica's camera. So she's gathering information. You see that live image of the bomb squad rolling in there. But Bruce Thomas, I wanted to ask you, because of the dangerous nature of the business that we're talking about, these explosives that were so volatile just now, whatever happened to cause it happened. The question I would have is there a reason they might be doing volatile activities at this time of day so that is that part of the process? Maybe we're going to do this at 7 a.m., 7:15 a.m. before people are getting onto that site, because as I mentioned a moment ago, this could have been horribly worse if there had been more people there. And this is bad enough, but is there a method to doing it at this time of day?
You know, as Scott was talking about, and we talked about the hour of the day, that's minimal amount of personnel that are there. So I can't believe they were trying to move something as dangerous as explosives off that facility in a truck like that without a containment type vessel, because those trailers are not explosive vessel containment trailers. Those are for the robot. Those are for the personnel to basically command and control whatever incident an explosive device. So it seems, and once again, we don't want to speculate, because this is very tragic, is it was some sort of in-house device that tragically went wrong in this case.
Right, right. And Bruce, we're looking at the scene now, and I'm looking at all those firefighters gathering behind that large fire vehicle, and I'm guessing that's a safety issue for them, just in case we do have more explosive material to deal with. Monica de Anda is live on the scene right now, and Monica, I don't know if you're able to get much more information, but what does it look like out there? How are our sheriff's deputies responding?
Yeah, John and Philip, you know, not much information right now from the Sheriff's Department, but I'll let you know we're positioned off of Loda and Eastern. This is the closest we're able to get. As we look, and you can see some, here comes one of the law enforcement vehicles coming in pretty hot. There's a lot of activity. We just saw the LAPD bomb squad that we know has been called in to assist. And really, if we look further in, closer to the facility, that's where one of our crews was positioned, but they're working on pushing back all the media to where we're at right now on Eastern and Loda Drive. And as Scott has been saying, you know, we've been overhead of this scene about an hour now, and this deadly explosion, Scott Rife saw at least 3 people have been killed. We're working to find out more information, but details are very limited. The only thing the sheriff's office has confirmed to us at this moment is that there was a loud boom. That's it. They're not going any further into details. Very limited information at the moment, and I'm sure Scott has a better picture overhead. And we also know that we saw multiple sheriff's deputy units that had the windows blown out. So you can see, if you're taking our picture live right now, a lot of movement as they work to get in the appropriate resources into this facility that they have here on Eastern. So we are going to stay here and continue to monitor the scene, but with that, I'll throw it back to you guys for now.
Thank you, Monica. Thank you, Monica. So as Monica was explaining, we actually have 2 cameras on the ground. One is in the direction of the one you're looking at now, and they likely will try to move all of those cameras and other station live trucks out of that space. But again, Scott Reif is above the scene. And Scott, I mentioned a moment ago, you're starting to see more human activity in that area, but they are still not approaching the area where the explosions. They took care as they could of the bodies that are there, covered them out of respect. But really, after that, they pulled back, and they haven't gone anywhere near the site of the explosion.
Yeah, that is correct. I mean, when we got overhead, it was probably about 10, maybe 12 minutes since the explosion occurred, and they'd already moved everybody out. They'd already put up the tape, and they'd already have left the 3 bodies. You see 2 of them right there. They're covered. Off to the left side is a blue tarp, and that was the 3rd body. The 2 that are covered in front of the trucks, the bomb squad trucks, they were not covered when we got on scene. It was a very graphic scene, no question about that. And at this point in time, they've just sectioned this area off. And as you mentioned, no one is approaching. I would assume by now they're starting to talk about what these bomb squad deputies were doing. What were they in the process of doing this morning at this hour? They're looking at what they were supposed to be dealing with, what they were moving, how something like this could have happened, so they can try to determine what it is they're dealing with. Now, pushing as tight as you can, and we try and give you an idea, is right in there is where we believe the explosion occurred. And it's somewhat unusual, as you mentioned, Philip. You don't see a lot of damage to the trucks. It's almost if the explosion was directional, pointing to your left side of the screen. Because you go left a little bit, it's hard to see. Those patrol cars right there that are lined up, all the windows were blown out in the back. Like the explosion and the blast went to what would be the southwest. So it's really difficult to determine exactly what happened. But I'm figuring they're trying to find out what they were dealing with, what they were supposed to be doing this time of the morning. And I don't know, my IFB is really crackly, and I don't know if Bill Thomas mentioned something about the fact that maybe it was something there that they weren't aware of. Did I misunderstand that? Like maybe it was something that the Sheriff's Department wasn't aware of in this area?
Well, I don't know that he said that, but he's still with us. Bruce, is that a possibility as to what Scott was just talking about, that maybe they were moving something they didn't know what it was? Do we have Bruce with us still? Okay, hold on. I think he heard us. Yeah, go ahead, Bruce. We didn't hear the first part of what you said.
Yeah, I was going to say we don't want to speculate, but what Scott is talking about is very valid. You know, was there something in this mixture, so to speak, of explosives that they thought was inert and maybe wasn't? But everything they do is so calculated, so it just becomes a tragic incident.
Sure, it sure does, Bruce. Scott, can you pull out again? Just show us the LAPD bomb squad now on the scene. It looks like off to the left there.
Looks like they've moved closer.
The van right here,
Yeah.
there's their command post. That's
Right.
the LAPD bomb squad command post right there. That's one of them. But there's multiple units that have responded.
And that gives us some
They're
idea.
all LAPD right there.
Yeah, it gives us some idea of what they're dealing with. They had to bring in another bomb squad from the LAPD, it looks like, to evaluate the safety of this scene before they move in. So that's where we're at now. I assume the Sheriff's Department bomb squad, devastated at this point, obviously. And you have the LAPD team now here to assist.
Well, Scott, from the view that you have now, it seems as if you've been able to move closer. Have they changed your flight restrictions?
No, it hasn't been put up yet. What happens is they did push us out, and we moved out, and it's a gray area until they actually put the TFR up officially. We're able to sneak in a little further. Once it goes up officially, then we will have to back off once again. So it's a timing game at this point in time as far as how long we can actually stay here. My guess is with the LAPD that they're going to be, for the most part, in charge of what happens here. LA County Sheriff's Bomb Squad is probably just going to take a step back, and they're going to interview them, they're going to talk to them, they're going to find out what was going on, what they were moving, what procedures were underway this time of the morning. And if they do need to move in a robot, I believe they'll do it with the LAPD robot. You know, the robots from the LA County Sheriff's Department, I'm not certain, but I believe they're inside the trucks. That's usually where they house them. So if you did want to put a robot in there, take a good look around, trying to get a sniffer, see if you have any chemicals in there, try and really determine that it's safe to approach. I believe they'll use an LAPD robot to do that. I think that's what we may see here later on in the morning. That's just speculation from what I've seen in the past, but it appears to me that's a much better option than trying to have the Sheriff's Department do that, because they may not have all their equipment, and not only that, you know, the guys are just right now, they're in a panic, you know. I mean, it's chaos mode. It's like, really, I just lost my buddy. So I think someone else is really going to take over and determine whether or not the scene is safe before they move in and then continue on with the investigation.
Yeah, totally understandable. Scott, can you push in by the fire truck down there? It looked like something in the middle of that parking lot. I'm just curious
is a bag.
if you can tell what that might be.
It's a bag.
And Scott, I was curious, you know, because you mentioned earlier, you know, the force of this explosion. I initially thought that was a rover, but Scott determined and Marcel determined that was a bag. I'm just wondering if that was tossed there due to the explosion, or possibly left there by people evacuating the area. We're about a minute away from returning to our newsroom. I believe that is going to be Rachel Brown once again.
I think you and I are going to take care of that, Philip. Yeah. So, yeah, we're about a minute away from going to our broadcast of the ABC 7 broadcast. So stick with us. We're going to have complete coverage of this throughout the morning for you. Scott, I was curious. It looks like a blast scorch mark on the parking lot between two of those victims. Is that fair to say?
Could you mention that one more time? The IFP has been really tough for me, John.
On the asphalt between two of the victims, is that a scorch mark, a black scorch mark I can see there?
Yeah, that's what we believe that is too. We believe the origin of the explosion is right in that area somewhere, which is a little bizarre because you don't see much damage there. It's somewhat difficult to explain an explosion this big that kills 3 people that doesn't do more damage in the area where we believe the explosion occurred. And when we got closer, when we could get closer, and we got here early this morning before the airspace restrictions, we could tell the back windows of all the patrol cars you see lined up there were all blown out, and that gave us the feeling that the explosion, you know, blew in that direction, if you will, towards us from the shot and angle we have. But yeah, John, that looks like a scorch mark, and there appeared to be, when we were closer, a little cart or something of that nature, and it appeared that possibly that was the origin of the explosion.
And I haven't seen the cart that you speak of yet, Scott. I mean, I don't want to go in any closer because, you know, we have human beings who have passed in front of us there. But I still haven't seen the cart that you're talking about. And the force of an explosion, I'm surprised the cart would still be there.
It's what looked like a portion of a cart, and not much of a cart, but appeared to be a cart. And you're just not going to see it from this far away because it's around the side by where the ramp is, and it's really difficult for us to get in there at this point in time. But if we had a better shot, I think you'd see what we're talking about. It's just that we've been pushed out too far. If you go to our original footage that we shot when we were overhead and we were in tight, be very careful with it because it's extremely graphic. 2 of the sheriff's deputies were face down and they were not covered. Then you'll see what appears to be not a whole cart, but appears to be pieces of what may have been a cart. And we sort of speculated on that. Since the ramp was down, it looked like they may have been in the process of bringing something in or taking something out of the bomb squad truck.
Okay, Scott, and we're getting word that the Governor's Office of Emergency Management Services is now getting involved, and we're hoping perhaps to get a statement from them that'll give us a little more information. Primarily what we're going on right now is everything that Scott's seen. Air 7 was overhead very early on, sadly, when these victims were still uncovered, and that's where we get the basic information that there are 3 victims at this bomb squad headquarters in East LA, and now you can see a massive investigation underway involving firefighters and the LA bomb squad that has also been called in.
We're about 15 seconds away from taking a break and going back to ABC 7, which we call our linear side. Our streaming will continue. John Gregory, I'm Philip Palmer, Scott Wright, Bruce Thomas, Monica DeAnda, all involved in our coverage here of this deadly explosion at the Sheriff's Department training facility. We will be right back in just a few seconds.
This is Eyewitness News with live breaking news.
And good morning, I'm John Gregory. We're covering breaking news in Monterey Park where a terrible incident is unfolding. This is the Sheriff's Department's bomb squad headquarters where there are 3 victims in that parking lot. We don't know exactly what happened. We think it was some type of explosion. Scott Reif is live in Air 7 with the latest for us.
Yeah, John, the initial call came out as an explosion at the SCB compound, the LA County Sheriff's SCB compound. SCB is Special Enforcement Bureau, like the SWAT team, and this is the bomb squad area of their compound. When we got on scene initially, we saw 2 bodies that were face down, deceased, and then another body that was covered. They did appear to be LA County Sheriff's deputies, but that has not been confirmed. Now, since that time, they've sectioned this area off. They're not allowing anyone in. They're really trying to determine exactly what happened here this morning, what they were dealing with, what process they were following when they were moving some of these explosives, exactly what happened. And to determine some of that, they brought in the LAPD bomb squad. It looks like they may be the leading authority going in and clearing the area. It's yet to be seen. But certainly a tragic incident here at the LA County Sheriff SCB compound in Monterey Park, East LA, Monterey Park area. John?
All right, Scott, thanks.
And along with John Gregory, I'm Philip Palmer, and Monica DeAnda is also out at the scene. She's on the ground. And Monica, you have mentioned that this is kind of fluid for you. They're moving the cameras around and keeping reporters and cameras away from that scene. Okay, Monica's.
That
there it
is where that training facility is. Can you guys hear me?
Now we can. Go ahead if you could restart for us.
Okay, great. So we're seeing a lot of activity, a lot of law enforcement vehicles moving in and out of this road here off of Eastern, trying to make their way into that facility, including the LAPD bomb squad, which you guys mentioned, and we saw as they moved in here about 10 minutes ago. They are going to assist with this investigation, likely because, of course, there's an explosion here and that equipment may be compromised. So that's why they're bringing in the equipment from the LAPD, their bomb team in here now. As of course, this is a very unprecedented situation. Details are very limited. The sheriff's office only confirming there was a loud boom. That's it. So we're here on the ground trying to find out more. Air 7, of course, is overhead, and we'll continue to update you as we learn more. For now, reporting here in East LA, I'm Monica DeAnda. Back to you guys.
Okay, Monica, thank you. We have David Ono on the phone, and David did some training with the Sheriff's Department bomb squad. David, any idea, any assessment of what may have been going on here?
No, I don't, but I will say that this is an unprecedented, as Monica was talking about, an unprecedented accident that I find shocking, and I'm sure the Sheriff's Department finds it that way as well. In training with SCB, I learned so much about how they operate and how elite this group is. They're considered one of the top SWAT units in the world, and in fact, when I was training with them in their academy, we had many SWAT members from other parts of the world, from Italy. We had Navy SEALs with us training, and they're exceptional people who know their craft really well. And during our training, and it's a week-long academy, it gets really intense. And part of that training is explosives training. They teach you how to handle an explosion when you're nearby and avoid concussion, what to do with your ears, what to do with your mouth. And then they'll do stuff like blow off a door, and then you run inside in your stack with your group. And then you do a lot of classroom training as well on how to handle explosives, what to do with explosives when they're nearby. So to see an accident like this is really shocking because these guys are so careful and they're so good at what they do, especially at SEB. That's one part of it. The other part of it is this is such a unique unit that they are small. Granted, the Sheriff's Department as a whole is as many as 10,000 deputies, but you whittle it down. When I was part of SEB, there was only 80 guys. It's extremely elite. Now it's, I think, a bit larger than that. They've expanded the unit to a couple of hundred, but nevertheless, the training and the requirements to be part of this unit are extreme. And if you fail, then you're out, and you're out for good, and you can't get back in. So the level of quality of these guys is tops. To see an accident like this happen is pretty shocking. And granted, we don't know what actually happened. And maybe it was something that's not related to training and not related to the explosives they had on hand, and perhaps they were doing something else with something else. So we'll get some explanations soon. But I was shocked when I heard the headline right when this had happened that 3 are dead. And that's going to be devastating for the unit as a whole because all these guys know each other very close, intimately. They're good friends. They train every day, all day long together. So this has to be devastating for that unit.
Well, David, one of the things that we were talking about, and since you trained with them, I'd be curious your take on this. This could have been significantly worse at a different time of day. So my question is, what's happening at 7:30 in the morning, generally speaking, with these units? Are they moving materials? Are they getting ready for the day? And why would there not be more people? Is that maybe why they might be doing certain things at this time of day?
Quite often, they're doing a lot of training. Most of their training happens in the morning. So they're there bright and early, in fact, dark and early, before the sun comes up, and they're doing their runs, they're doing their weights, they're getting their day together. These guys are training habitually. That morning is really important for their time to get it together, be cohesive as a unit, because then once the day starts, they're on call and all sorts of things start happening and they're out in the field. So the morning is when they're moving stuff around, they're dividing up, they're going into their specialties, et cetera. My assumption, and I know it's dangerous to go into assumptions, my assumption is these are somehow guys who are connected to their explosives unit, and they might have been moving materials. It could have been training materials. It could be something else. But these, I think there's a decent chance these are very specific people who might be connected to explosives and something went horribly wrong.
Right. That is one possibility we've been discussing with Scott Reif. Again, it is all speculation at this point, but we're just trying to get a sense of what kind of activity would be going on at that time. David, do you have any sense of what type of explosive material they do store in that facility? Is it a shaped charge, the kind of thing you would use to detonate fireworks, for instance?
It could be that. It's a lot of the the putty that they'll use to like
C4
blow open a
probably.
door.
Yeah,
C4, and then and you just need a little tiny bit of it in order to do that. But they do work with it every day. They train with that. They use it as a tool in their operations. So it's hard to say. And maybe this is something more like explosives being moved that aren't theirs but could be somebody else's or part of an investigation. And as we saw with the LAPD, these guys are all experts, but accidents do happen, especially with explosives. They're so unpredictable. It's such a dangerous part of what they do that sometimes these unpredictable moments do happen.
Well, David, thank you very much. We wanted to pass along some information. We do have a tweet from Pam Bondi. She is reaching out. She is mentioning that the Sheriff's Enforcement Bureau personnel handling some kind of explosives, and there was a blast. This is from Pam Bondi. She did acknowledge 3 employees are believed to be dead. She also said that federal investigators, federal agents are on the scene, and they are working to learn more about what happened. So that is coming from Pam Bondi, the U.S. Attorney General. And then, of course, we've also heard from the governor's office this morning as well. And
it gives you some sense of the gravity of this tragedy. Federal authorities will be involved in this investigation, state authorities, and, of course, the LAPD's bomb squad assisting as well. It is going to be a lengthy investigation, a detailed investigation, and sadly, we're still coming to grips with the fact that we have 3 people that have been killed in this tragedy.
Well, and before we go, as we get ready to take it back to regular programming, we are getting a statement from Catherine Barger's office. She is, along with the Board of Supervisors, providing a statement, and I'm going to really quickly read this. According to Barger's office, I'm heartbroken to hear of the terrible tragedy that has unfolded today at an LA County Sheriff's Department facility. I'm closely tracking the situation as we learn more about what occurred and the condition of those affected. My heart is heavy, and my thoughts are with the brave men and women of the Sheriff's Department during this difficult time. We stand with them and their families as they navigate the hours and days ahead. That is from Supervisor Catherine Barger's office. Along with John Gregory, I'm Philip Palmer. We're going to wrap this part up. We will continue our coverage on our ABC 7 streaming channel. John, you have some final thoughts?
No, just that we're going to be here for a long time and trying to get answers for people. And I hope you stay with us on the ABC 7 stream.
Okay, welcome back. We are continuing our streaming coverage here. I'm Philip Palmer along with John Gregory. Bruce Thomas, our law enforcement expert, is with us. Scott Reif is in Air 7 above the scene. We have Monica DeAnda on the ground, and we have a couple of cameras there as well, John. And
we're also getting official confirmation from a number of sources of the tragedy that's unfolded here. The Attorney General's office confirming 3 people killed here this morning. Catherine Barger's office confirming that as well. Also, the governor's office has put out a statement. So we are now able to safely say 3 people were killed here this morning. Exactly what unfolded, though, is still unclear. We believe this was some type of explosive accident, and we say that in part because that was the initial call that Air 7, Scott Reif, heard in Air 7 this morning. He was in the area. He was over it very quickly, and sadly, he was able to see the results of that apparent explosion in that parking lot. And can we go to Scott now for the latest on what he's seeing? Scott, you there?
Yeah, John, I believe you have me. John and Philip, if you still have me. Yeah, what we're seeing is just more and more people responding to the scene. Of course, we talked about the LAPD responding with their bomb squad. We're seeing a lot more units respond. Probably going to see a whole bunch of LA County Sheriff's deputies respond just to come and give support to everyone who has to deal with this. It was interesting. Who did you have on the line? Was it David?
David Ono.
Who was in the bomb squad?
Well, he had trained with them. He had done some stories with them, yes.
Interesting. Okay, that was very interesting. The size of the department, it's more than when he was there. He said, closer to 80 or 80, but probably more than that. But that is a very, very small unit. Another thing is discussed, and he looked at, that he thought maybe this was some sort of training incident, and that is possible. But if it was training, it would be a very informal type of training. Just a couple of people right next to a van, right next to one of their bomb squad trucks, right next to a ramp. It wouldn't be like a formal training where they got everybody together and they tried to teach them about explosives and what happens when you explode something. And then he discussed the possibility of some type of accident. And I tell you, Marcel and I, when we got here and we talked about it amongst ourselves, it really appeared to us like somebody was moving something that maybe exploded. Maybe they shouldn't have been moving it. Maybe they didn't move it under the proper procedure. Pure speculation. We're just guessing here, so bear with me. Just looking at what we see and trying to piece things together with the information that we have, and that may be way wrong. But what came to mind first to us, because it was 7:30 in the morning, there weren't a lot of people around, that possibly they were moving something that exploded. Now, that was our initial sense of what we saw, but it was extremely graphic when we got here because the explosion, we believe the call came out around 7:20. I think we were overhead about 7:32. We depart out of Van Nuys, so it didn't take us long to get here, and we were right by the helicopter when the call came out. And when we got overhead, we could see 2 bodies face down, appeared to be LA County Sheriff's deputies by what they were wearing. And then there was a 3rd body. You can sort of see the tarp, and there was a tarp over that body. It's another 30 feet away from the other 2 bodies around that truck on the top of your screen by that van that's covered with the tarp. And so that's what we saw. It was extremely graphic. And then about 10 minutes later, they did move in. They walked into this area, and they covered the bodies. But since that time, they've backed off, and nobody has entered the area since.
And Scott, we saw LAPD bomb squad there. We mentioned that this is going to be such a multi-agency investigation, but you have to secure the area. I'm kind of curious what is different now? We see that has moved. Are other vehicles in different positions? Are you starting to see them slowly create a plan as far as how they're going to be able to manipulate people and vehicles so that they can get closer and secure and safely secure this site?
Yeah, I think what they're doing right now is they're devising the plan, and LAPD, more than likely, in my opinion, is going to be the entity that moves in and goes into that area, probably with one of their robots. It's going to be a long playing deal. This isn't going to happen quickly. They're going to take their time. They don't know if there's something else that could explode in there. They probably really don't know exactly what happened. They probably have some idea because they know what those sheriff's deputies were doing this morning. They were there at 7:30. They had a job to do, whether it was moving explosives, no matter what it was. At least they have some sort of idea what they were supposed to be doing. From there, they can derive maybe what they're dealing with, but not for certain, because they may have grabbed something that they weren't supposed to. I mean, there's so many possibilities. You just can't really cover them all, and that's why, when we talk about things, it's speculation. But given that, it's going to be the LAPD, we believe, that moves in and secures the area, because, you talk about a unit with the SCB and the Sheriff's Department, the bomb squad, that's only maybe 100 individuals. They're all pretty shook up, and I think a lot of the equipment that they use, you can open up a little bit, you see somebody's taking a picture now, but on the right side of your screen, you see all of those bomb squad vehicles. I believe a lot of the equipment the LA County Sheriff's Department would use is in those vans, and so because of that, I think what we're going to see is the LAPD come in and secure the area. I want to give you a wide shot. Now, that is Sheriff's Way that winds around this entire area. On the bottom of your screen, there's a training facility here for the Sheriff's Department. Fleet Services is down there on the bottom where they take care of all the LA County vehicles, not just the Sheriff's Department. This is a large area that the county uses for a lot of different things, some training. They have, like I said, Fleet Services. They secure all their radios and things of that nature in this area. And I don't think they're going to let anybody into this area. It looks like they've shut down the street, so there'll be some services that maybe if you wanted to get into Fleet Services, you may not be able to do that today, especially if you're a civilian, although not a lot of civilians are allowed into this area, but it gives you an idea. They're shutting everything down. And then, of course, it's such a tight-knit community. We're seeing a lot of LAPD officers respond, excuse me, that probably aren't here officially. Of course, a lot of LA County Sheriff's deputies responding just because they know the individuals or they know someone who's close to the individuals. And so we have a lot of law enforcement vehicles that are here now. But I think, Philip, a plan's being devised. It looks like once they get that done, they'll be able to move in with the bomb squad, with the LAPD bomb squad, right to that area in front of the fire engine there, or on the top of your screen where the tape is over that little alleyway. And they'll be able to move in and really go in there and get an idea what they're dealing with. I think they'll use the robot to do that, but, time will tell.
All right, Scott. We do have Monica Dianda live on the ground. And Monica, she's been forced to move several times as they extend this perimeter. Monica, can you hear me? And where are you located right now?
Yeah, I can hear you guys. Scott just mentioned Sheriff Road, and that is where we're at. If you take a look leading up that way, that is where all this investigation is happening. I got to tell you guys, I saw something quite emotional while we were trying to make our way a little closer to the scene. We saw one sheriff's deputy pull in, and as the other two deputies were lifting the caution tape up, they started, crying essentially. Their eyes were watering as that deputy told the other two that were working the scene, "I'm sorry." And that just goes to show the human element, right? These law enforcement officers that show up every day, they have families, they're friends. This is a brotherhood, a sisterhood, and it is really devastating to see that not only they have a job to do right now, but they are also going through it, right? This is heartbreaking. They likely know the people who were killed in this explosion. And we are also learning new information. This is coming in from ABC News that the personnel were handling some kind of explosives when there was a blast. At least 3 employees are believed to be dead, and we are expecting to hear from Sheriff Luna very soon here. So as soon as we continue to learn more, we will pass that information along over to you. But really heartbreaking to see the deputies out here. They're having to do their job, but also process that they just lost 3 of their family members. With that, I'll send it back to you guys.
Monica, to be clear, you have spoken with someone at ABC who has said the individuals were handling explosives. That is confirmed through ABC News sources?
We have it reportable here. From ABC Network. Preliminary sources say it appears the Sheriff's Enforcement Bureau personnel were handling some sort of explosives when there was a blast.
Okay.
All right, that kind of jives with what we've been speculating.
Well, we knew there was an explosion.
Right.
We didn't know what had led to that explosion. So it's an interesting take there. But you know, one of the things that Monica just mentioned with that interaction with the two deputies, it really strikes me that with 80 to 100 people involved, and you know that there's been an explosion involving one of your team members, you just want to get to that site. And the exchange that she witnessed, you have to think that there are people who are arriving and they learn who it was in that moment. They don't know.
Right.
They just know it was someone. And Bruce Thomas is with us. And Bruce, part of the investigation Scott Reif had mentioned, and this is part of where I'm going with this, is that they only knew what these guys were doing the morning, what they were assigned to do. And so they will slowly find out who these people are even before the name is released. That's got to be just overwhelming for every officer that starts to arrive at this scene.
Yeah, very much so. Through my sources, I've already been given 3 names. Obviously, I'm not going to release those names, but 2 of the names I know, I worked with. So there's a connection and a tragic connection to that. But speaking to the point of LAPD responding, this is a huge crime scene. There is debris all over. So they're formulating the plan of how, one, they safely can go in there to make sure everything has been rendered inert. The second thing is, too, they don't want to disturb any part of this investigation. And as Scott said, all of Sheriff's Department facilities, equipment assigned to SEB and to arson explosives are in that area. They can't access their own equipment.
It's all taped off right now, which certainly explains why the LAPD's bomb squad was sent in. Bruce, my dad was a cop for 25 years, and I have some understanding of the culture of being a police officer. Can you give us more insight on, it is a brotherhood. I mean, everybody relying on everyone else to watch your back in a way that most other people can't understand. What are they going through right now?
Yeah, very much so. It is a brotherhood, a sisterhood, and especially when you have a specialized unit like arson explosives, they all know each other. And so for them to work this scene is just going to be heartbreaking, at the same time very professional, because they have a job to do.
And also, you know, Bruce, you had mentioned that you knew and worked with possibly some of the victims here, and we have to also understand the families. I mean, there are families out there who maybe have been alerted, maybe haven't been, and there will be a community of people that aren't just the officers that are having to come to grips with this incredible loss. And I think when you mentioned that you might know some of the victims, it's just, it's gut-wrenching to imagine what the families are going through.
Yeah, I mean, they started their day at maybe 6 a.m., who knows? This was the last thing that they or anybody who works down there or is involved with these specialized units would think ever would happen. I mean, it's a tragedy beyond tragic.
Okay, and we're continuing our coverage here with Bruce Thomas and resources very near this scene in Monterey Park. You can see where the facility is in that map there on the screen to your right. That kind of gives you an indication as to where this site is. Scott Reif is above this scene in Air 7 and has pointed out that its location is not going to cause any impact to the surrounding communities. You'll be able to navigate around this. You might not even know anything's going on. But Scott, you're probably seeing all different agencies begin to show up. You can understand why sheriffs will not be the lead agency in this investigation, but we're going to have federal. We have Governor Newsom's office has already responded, said they're going to be involved. So there's going to be a measure of slow coordination that has to happen here, and you're kind of getting a witness of that from above.
Yeah, there's no question about that. And I want to sort of explain something a little bit, and Marcel pointed this out. You have to understand, in the helicopter up here, in this helicopter that we're in, particularly this morning, the monitor for me is pretty small. But in the back, Marcel has a huge monitor. And when we showed up and he was shooting it, he got a much better assessment of what was going on than I did, and he explained it to me. And one of the things he told me just a moment ago, that he doesn't think it was training because they had their regular sheriff's equipment on, and they didn't have any safety equipment on. That and the location. It could have been training, but it really doesn't appear from what we are seeing that that will be the case. It really looks more and more like possibly they were moving something, maybe something they weren't supposed to, or maybe something not in the right way. But the procedures that they have to follow are so stringent. And that's why it's unprecedented. That's why you almost never hear about anything like this at a sheriff's department and the bomb squad, because it's a secure place. No one can get in. I mean, it's more secure than a regular police station. You've got to go through several different checkpoints before you can get in. And only the bomb squad deputies, for the most part, are allowed in this area. So it's going to be a long-playing investigation to see what's going on. Now, we do see some movement there, Philip. We did see someone come up fairly close and take some pictures. I can't tell, Marcel, is that the LAPD? So that's LAPD right there. That's the LAPD bomb squad. And so they are now starting to move forward, get a little better idea of what they're dealing with, and then formulate a plan on how they're going to move in and secure the area and continue the investigation.
Important point, though, you mentioned about how they were equipped when this accident happened. Anybody who's ever seen the bomb squad in operation knows they wear very, very thick, heavy, padded armor when they're dealing with any kind of explosive. So if these guys are just wearing, you know, the regular uniforms, that does indicate perhaps this was somebody just moving some boxes around or moving some equipment around, getting ready for the day when this tragedy unfolded.
Well, to your point, John, we've seen training exercises, whether it's fire or police or sheriffs, any kind of training exercise, and there is a wide range of protection. And even when they're just doing a drill, where a fire drill, they're not just casually doing anything. So I think what Scott said and what you just pointed out is very valid. A training exercise would have had so much beyond just the people involved that it makes me just think that there were explosives clearly involved, but it was just moving them of some sort.
Sadly, this may have been a couple guys just getting ready to start the workday when this tragedy unfolded. And we did report that LAPD bomb squad is now moving in, and it looks like they're getting ready to take over this operation. The area in question is taped off. You can see the yellow tape around it, and we haven't seen anybody in that area since coverage began, I think around 7:30 this morning. Scott Reif was over it very early this morning. Sadly, he was over it before the victims were covered up, and so a terrible scene unfolding there for him. But now it looks like more investigators are on scene, and they may be getting prepared to take some steps in furthering this investigation.
I did see them start to move a tent around by the fire truck there. So I know that's not going to be part of the investigation. It's just, I think it goes to show the methodical nature that's going to happen here. They're going to really set up command posts. There's going to, I mean, you're going to have ATF that's got to get there. There's just some logistical elements that are going to happen after they simply make it safe.
Right, yeah. Attorney General Pam Bondi already issuing a statement indicating that federal investigators will be taking part. So you will see ATF out here as well. Perhaps the governor's emergency services department will also be taking part. Yeah, this is going to be a massive investigation, and I wouldn't be surprised if it lasts more than a day, in the initial investigation with all those units out there, because they do have to go through so much material and piece together exactly how this tragedy unfolded.
Well, Scott Reif has to go fuel. He's been above this scene since about 7:30 this morning, so he is going to head off to get refueled. We do know, as you look at some of these ground cameras here, the FBI is also involved. We have FBI responding, but we're also hearing from them that they are deferring to the Sheriff's Department for specific details. So, but again, as we were talking about a moment ago, ATF is going to be involved. FBI is going to be involved. LAPD is, the governor's office. And just, again, from logistical standpoint, this is going to take massive coordination to find the lead agency and how we'll be able to determine what happened here today.
We have still not officially heard from the Sheriff's Department. Sheriff Luna has not issued a statement at this time. Most of our information coming from local politicians, coming from the Attorney General's office. We're hoping to hear from the Sheriff's Department to give us some update on exactly what may have transpired. But it gives you some sense of just how shocking this is for the department. They are really trying to put it all together. Maybe they just don't know what to say at this point. They don't have enough information. So it's very early on in the investigation. We do have crews on the ground. Air 7 will be back. They're refueling. So a long way to go in determining how this tragedy unfolded.
We do have word from Sheriff Luna, and this is not a statement, but he did confirm that he has spoken with the Attorney General, Pam Bondi. Bondi's tweet, her message on X, we read earlier today. So there is confirmation that the sheriff has actually spoken with the Attorney General. But again, 3 people we know have been killed in an explosion that was on the Sheriff's Department training facility grounds near where the bomb squad trains. David Ono joined us earlier, and he had talked about his opportunity to train or to be around them when they trained, and his explanation at what might be going on around 7:30 is he said that's when they do a lot of just work. They're just getting their day ready because the rest of the day is going to be so occupied.
Yeah.
So we don't know what was happening, but we do know that a lot of activity is happening.
Yeah, for people like you and me, getting ready for work means maybe reading a few scripts. These guys get ready with explosives. That's what they deal with on a daily basis. And shockingly, something went terribly wrong this morning, and that's what we're trying to figure out exactly what happened. We don't think they were on any kind of call, a bomb squad call. There was nothing earlier this morning we were covering indicating there was something going on. So all the indications right now do appear to indicate this was a normal day. They come to work, they get all their stuff, all their gear ready, and that's when this may have unfolded.
We do have video from earlier that we might be able to show as we have the live picture on the left, and because Scott Reif was above this scene very early on, and the devastation was impactful to him. He saw these bodies face down before they were even covered. But what is also telling about this is the force of this blast. You had one victim who was probably 10 to 20 yards away from the 2 victims that were probably most near the initial explosion. There was a bag that was on the other side of the parking lot. We still don't know what's in that bag. So you could really see from his images, and he also pointed out, the windows were blown out of the back of a lot of sheriff's cruisers. So the force of this blast was significant. And I think that is very interesting in the sense that, you know, that type of blast, that to kill at least 2 people virtually instantly, and then another death, and then all of those windows, that is a significant explosion for just moving something around at that time of day. So that is part of what is very complex and interesting to me, to wonder what that might have been.
And also a reminder of just how dangerous their work is.
Every moment.
That they deal with this kind of stuff all the time. We do have a tweet from Mayor Karen Bass regarding this incident. The city of LA is supporting LASD HQ through this horrific incident in Monterey Park. LAFD, ATF, arson investigators, and members of the LAPD bomb squad are assisting at the training facility. The thoughts of all Angelenos are with all of those impacted by the blast. Again, that's coming from Mayor Karen Bass, and another indication of all the different agencies coming to bear in trying to sort through what happened here.
Yeah, there's also a statement from Hilda Solis and Catherine Barger. The governor's office has mentioned that they're, you know, doing what they can and staying in communication. So you can imagine, in a sense, why Sheriff Luna hasn't given a statement yet, because he is getting information coming at him left, right, and everywhere. People asking questions. But here you see Catherine Barger's statement. We read that for you a moment ago. Clearly, she also heartbroken, and thoughts with the Sheriff's Department, of course. And you can imagine that the supervisor's office is going to give every piece of support that they can to everyone involved in this investigation.
One other possibility regarding the sheriff, he sadly may be dealing with families right now, which would not be a surprise if that you want to get a hold of them first and let them know before they find out from some other source. So that may be what he's dealing with, and that may be why we really haven't heard from him yet.
Well, and let's also take a moment here, because on the stream we have an opportunity to be a little more relaxed in what we're doing. Let's both take a moment to point out We're talking about an accident and an investigation and death because it is a news story. But we are not immune to the fact that we know there are families and there are deputies. We've seen it. This is gut-wrenching.
Yeah.
So we are giving you the information about what happened because that is what you want and you need. But we are very aware, and it is deeply painful to us as well to imagine those touched by this. We see Sheriff Luna every week. We just saw him yesterday. This is going to be a very real moment for him. And as you mentioned, you've got to hope and think that's exactly what he's dealing with.
Yeah.
He's helping the families get through this as best he can.
We want to check in with Alex Stone with ABC News. Alex, you're covering this as well. Can you provide any more information on what we think happened here?
Philip, yeah, what we've been told is that they believe it was an accident, that they were moving around some kind of material and then it exploded. But to your point a moment ago about all of the other agencies that are responding right now, the FBI is sending bomb techs and their evidence response team. The ATF says that they're sending their bomb techs right now as well. They've got special agents that are going. That's not to indicate there was anything criminal here, but more out of respect for the Sheriff's Department in that, as you mentioned, they're dealing with a lot right now, and the sheriff is going to have to deal with a lot that they lost their own in this. So the LAPD, the ATF, the FBI can come in and help them out in the investigation to figure out what did go on. And we really don't know at this point what happened and why the explosion went off, but there are a lot of other agencies that are going in right now.
Well, Alex, you mentioned the Sheriff's Department investigative tools are locked down. They're in part of the crime scene. So that, too, is going to factor into why you need these other agencies. But you're reporting, and we've heard from you guys, that this was explosives that went off, clearly. But my question is, the force of this blast, have you heard any indication as to what how this could have, because we're talking about 3 deaths, 1 body 20 yards away, glass broken. This is a blast. This is a significant blast.
Yeah, and what they were moving, and I've been to this facility numerous times and can tell you that they have a lot of explosives there typically to train with, and potentially they would bring things back from a scene, although normally they would detonate those closer to a scene if they were bringing something back. But it could be what the bomb squad was using. It could be explosives that are used to breach doors, but typically that wouldn't be that powerful. Of what this was and why they had it, we have no idea at this point. And the sheriff is going to need to come out at some point and explain why they had this stuff and what it was. But it's a big, secure facility that is tough to get into, that all of this would have been locked down. We don't know what they were doing with it, but it seems like that they were moving it around at that moment when it went off.
Yeah. Yeah, the indications are that this was a normal day of work. They come to work early in the morning, getting ready for the work day, and that is when this tragedy unfolded. And as we were speaking with David Ono, who's done some training with this group, that's not unusual for them to have to deal with materials like that early in the morning as they start their day. Scott also pointed out that nobody was wearing any protective gear as far as he could tell, that they were wearing their normal uniforms. So you would think if they were dealing with something dangerous or they thought it was dangerous, they would have protective gear on.
Yeah, you're right. And one thing about the response is all these agencies are going. I just came in from Santa Clarita, and coming down the 5 right now, it is nonstop lights and sirens of sheriff's vehicles, marked, unmarked, LAPD coming in to help them out. That there is this big response going on. But yeah, I mean, it would be a normal beginning early of the day, 7 o'clock, 7:30, moving around whatever they're going to do with training or wherever they need it out in the field for what they're going to be doing that day. It would seem that that's what this was. There is nothing indicating anything nefarious in this or any kind of a crime, but the FBI, the ATF, the LAPD, they're going to help them out and figure it out.
Well, Alex, I mean, you think about the uniqueness of this instant. You have the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, also making a statement. And I was a bit surprised. I mean, for us, it's a big thing. It's a local. It's happened right here. But for the Attorney General, that shows the uniqueness of what's happened here.
Yeah, and part of that is because the FBI and the ATF and others are going, so it does become a federal case at that point. But she also calls it an incident. We do think it was an accident unless something changes, but she's calling it an incident in her tweet. But this is on the federal radar of what was this. The initial, as we were talking to the Sheriff's Department in those initial moments, same things you were hearing, where they were just saying, we don't know, that it was a big boom, is what I was told by one sergeant about an hour ago of when it went off, it was a boom, and we don't know from there that they were caught off guard on this as well as they went in. And Air 7 has been showing the scene of how expansive it is as they're now in there. They've got to deal with, is anything else in danger of going off? We understand that initially when LA County Fire went in, they were told to stand back, that there was still a potential threat there of could there be more explosives? Does that hinder them getting in to the bodies, getting into the actual explosive scene? There's a potential there as well that keeps them back. And really, do they want sheriff's investigators taking part in this, or are they going to hand it off to the LAPD and to the feds to say, hey, these are our own men and women. We don't know if they are men or women, but our own deputies, our own personnel, and you guys handle this because they will be less connected to what went on. All of that yet to be determined.
Alex, we're going to let you get back to work, but we want to say thank you very much for joining us and helping us out. Alex Stone from ABC News giving us his background on what he has learned this morning.
We're also getting some new information on the initial call that went down when this incident happened. Let's listen in to the sheriff's dispatch.
To confirm, that's related to an explosion at 1060 Northeastern Avenue. Eastern Avenue, explosion at location 2 down at SCD further to follow.
240 David did report an explosion with 3 down. Fire is also notified. All deputies responding to SCB be notified that 240 David is requesting that you stand down and don't approach the explosion at this time.
Yeah, that gives us some indication of what unfolded and the caution they're taking in approaching this scene. They just don't know what they're dealing with right now.
Well, and that last bit there, stand down and don't approach, that matches and marries the scene that we saw Scott Reif above it right away. And one thing that was telling was the lack of personnel around. There was no one there.
Right.
So they heeded that information, and they thought from the beginning that this is a volatile space, even after the explosion.
So that they know there was an explosion. They had 3 down. The question they don't know is, are there more explosives? And are they in a position where they might explode as well? And that's why everybody is standing back and letting the LAPD bomb squad come in now and evaluate the scene.
Monica DeAnda is on the scene. She's on the ground, and we're getting word, Monica, if I'm correct, that the sheriff has now arrived. Sheriff Luna has arrived on scene.
That's right. We ourselves didn't see him come in through here, but we do know that Sheriff Luna is now on the scene. So likely he's, for the first time, getting his eyes on what really happened and what transpired. This is heartbreaking, right? Nothing like this has ever happened. This is truly unprecedented, and now he has a tough task of, like you guys were mentioning, notifying the families of those 3 employees that were killed in this deadly explosion. It happened just after 7 a.m. this morning. A lot of details still unknown. We were told not long ago by a sheriff's personnel that came to talk to the media, they were asking for a little bit of patience before they come and brief the media. They do want us to know that they are going to come to this spot and speak to us, but it's going to take some time, which we can obviously understand because a lot of resources are still making their way into this training facility where the explosion happened. We know the ATF is on the ground, FBI now involved as well. We've seen the LAPD's bomb squad. So really a lot of resources, a multi-agency investigation that's going to get underway. But not long ago, we were able to speak with one security guard who says he works here up the facility about what he heard. Take a listen.
Okay, Monica, thank you very much. So that was Monica DeAnda reporting live from the scene and also letting us know that the sheriff was just arriving there. We've not heard from him yet, but we do know it was an explosion. Monica, thank you very much. Bruce Thomas joining us now. He's been with us throughout this, and Bruce, you know, once we get past the horrific nature of this explosion and 3 lives lost, again, we look at this investigation. It can take a very long time just to sadly remove the bodies from the scene and get them safely away. But you know, this is multiple agencies. What are the first steps? What is going to happen this morning as we try to begin the process of this investigation?
Yeah, Philip, as you're talking about, this is multi-layered. The first thing you got to do is render the area safe. Second thing is you identify it as a crime scene not just from a law enforcement perspective, but this is a Cal OSHA incident, meaning this is something that happened at the workplace. So they have to come in too. So then you have multiple agencies. In this case, LAPD, arson explosives will be there. The sheriffs are going to be involved to some degree, probably not handle the initial investigation. Then you have the FBI, which comes in, which are evidence gatherers, and they're very proficient in that. And then you have alcohol, tobacco, and firearms. So you have so many agencies involved. You're going to have a command post. This is going to take days to sort through this, if not weeks.
The investigation, there's no question about that, Bruce. We were wondering why Sheriff Luna hadn't spoken so far, and we were just curious, perhaps, is he dealing with families this early on? Is that safe to say?
Well, you know, having worked the Sheriff's Headquarters Bureau for a couple of years, and that's how I got started with the media, is there's so much information, and it's like a funnel. You want to just narrow it down. What is specific for the sheriff to talk about? Obviously about the tragic incident, about the loss of life. They are notifying the families. They are notifying the loved ones. They have department executives that are doing that. But the sheriff will give out whatever information he can as quickly as they can. But the primary focus of the department is to deal with this incident.
Yeah, Bruce, we'll continue this. I just want to do a little housekeeping here as we are streaming live and continuing our coverage. John Gregory, thank you for being here this morning. John Gregory is going to step out now. Colleen Sullivan is stepping in. She's going to get herself settled and locked in here, but we're going to continue our coverage of this. Again, John, thank you for being here. But Bruce Thomas, again, as we continue this coverage of this deadly explosion here, and you mentioned all of the details that are going to go into this investigation, but we spoke a moment ago, you know, you see sheriff's deputies here who are helping with traffic control. The force itself is large. There's 10,000 or so sheriff's deputies, but each of these is likely connected to what is happening today. And how do you compartmentalize that when you're trying to help with an investigation, but you know who was involved in this likely? We have not released the names at this point, but these people, you really have to be able to compartmentalize what has happened today.
Yeah, no question about it. Initially, the world responds. And then as things calm down, and I hate to use that word, but as things pare down, they'll release personnel. But you're going to have a huge unified command post on the grounds of SEB, you know, the Special Enforcement Bureau, or SWAT as it's known. You're going to have all these vehicles which are no longer able to be in service. The one thing I was going to point out was years ago I went to a federal training facility in New Mexico, and something as small as a thumbnail explosives patch can cause so much damage and injury, and in this case, possibly death. Could have been something as small as that even.
Bruce, the oddity to me is, again, when we talk about the explosion, when you see the images from Air 7 earlier, the force of this blast was tremendous, and it seems like that's to me the most confusing part of this. Not that there was an explosion, not that an accident happened, that happens. But the force of this explosion virtually killing at least 2, possibly 3 people instantly. The third person seemed to be a little bit further removed from the blast site. That is, and then all of the damage to the windows of the vehicles all around. That's what's confusing to me is the volume of that explosion.
Yeah, Philip, what you have is, and one of the things I learned, and I'm not an expert in this at all, is you have positive and negative air pressure, meaning the explosives kind of sucks the air in and then discharges it at such a high rate that that's what causes all the damage.
And then, and so now you've got LAPD that's going to be there as well. And you know, when you're talking about these things that you just don't know, how do you know when it's secure? I mean, what is their process going to be to secure the area and make sure that everything there is now inert and it's not there's no more danger?
Yeah, one of the first things you have to do is you have to survey the scene. LAPD is probably going to send their robots in to find out what was going on, to get a visual that you don't want to send personnel into. The other thing too is, what were these sheriff's deputies doing? That is really important. What were they moving? What explosives? What equipment? All those things.
Bruce, that's one of the things you said earlier that was fascinating to me, and I would assume is step one in this investigation when you remove yourself from the emotion of it. They know. I mean, can you talk to us about when you're assigned something within law enforcement and your day starting? Everybody knows what your day is looking like, correct? I mean, that's going to be the first thing. They're going to look and say, hey, they were supposed to do A, B, C, and these 3 people were involved, and this is where they were going. Is that that was an interesting point that you brought out earlier, is that's a first step. What was their responsibility this morning?
Yeah, every unit, every department has, a daily log, meaning what are you doing today? And these specialized units, they could have been reloading possibly some equipment that they use to detonate explosives at a range somewhere else or on site. So, and their executives, not executives, but their supervisors, they know what they're doing. And they were doing this early in the day. So it lends to me that, once again, and you've used the word and we hate it, this was just a routine restocking type of mission or just a routine moving of equipment.
Okay, Bruce, thank you very much. And again, John Gregory was with us earlier. Colleen Sullivan is now joining us as we continue the coverage of this horrible explosion that has killed 3 people at Sheriff's Training Facility.
It's just tragic. Bruce Thomas, thank you as always for joining us. Bruce, I have a question about some of the people and the personnel who are stationed here and about how these are highly trained individuals, very competitive to want to be in this sort of, arson, explosives details. They do handle a lot of things. They're called out to respond to so many incidents throughout our area, especially in the month of July, being that we had, 4th of July. We saw about 4 years ago, the LA PD had a situation where they were trying to transport illegal fireworks, and then they underestimated the container, and then it blew up in that neighborhood. So what do you think do you think that they did a training? Do you think this could be at all related to anything within the 4th of July? I mean, I know that you don't exactly know, but you have so many years of law enforcement experience that you've heard, a lot of things sort of, it's cyclical.
Yeah, Colleen, you never want to speculate or assume, but in this case, it could have been something related to the 4th of July, where they were just transporting explosives via their vehicle up to Wayside to detonate those fireworks. Or it could be just something that was a training aid that maybe they were going to put on some additional training. You just don't know, and we probably won't know for days or possibly weeks.
Yeah, what is a timeline on something like that? Because there's the aspect of they've removed some of the civilian cars. There are people who are trying to get out of there. But this investigative scene, given the size of this explosion, is going to be vast. I mean, you could have the smallest of pieces of evidence that could be hundreds of yards away, right? I mean, this is going to be, I would assume, first step would be to remove the victims so that there is proper respect paid to those victims. But and that can take hours, by the way. That can take a long time. But then you've got to start canvassing this area for every shred of evidence to help you really understand what happened here, right? I mean, that could be days, weeks, months.
Yeah, Philip, you're 100% correct. The coroner's office will take possession of the bodies, and typically you can't move those bodies until the coroner is on scene. So, you have, and we talk about multi-layered investigations. have to render the area safe. You have to identify and mark and photograph everything, every piece of debris that's on the ground. And then the investigation starts, and that could be hours from now.
You know, just from history of being a reporter in Los Angeles, I can tell you, I oddly enough have put a clock on this at sometimes. It can be 12 hours before the coroner comes and takes the bodies from the scene. And if that is trying to give people an idea as to what we're looking at here, Bruce, is that an unreasonable timeline? I mean, that's just been my experience, that it can be that long.
No, you're totally correct in this. You have a incident that occurred with a tragic loss of life, of law enforcement life. So there has to be respect and dignity to those bodies given by the personnel on scene and the coroner's office when they get there. And there is a whole protocol in dealing with an officer that has died tragically in the line of duty.
It is so heartbreaking, again, when you think about it, and you know, your loved one goes off to work and they work within law enforcement. It's never really a routine day. Everyone's lucky to, come home, and these poor individuals who showed up for work, and they were obviously, again, we know that these are highly trained individuals. They get to this unit, they've done a lot of training, they know how to handle explosives, and just to see this, and you know that their loved ones, their family, their friends, they're watching what's happening, and my heart just goes out to them. I know yours does too. I also think about what Sheriff Luna has ahead of him today, because not only does he have to figure out what happened, but he does have to take care of his law enforcement family. They really do consider each other brothers and sisters.
Yeah, you're right, Colleen. And the other thing too is, these deputies assigned to this specialized unit know tenfold other department personnel throughout the entire region, throughout the entire county. So the sheriff has to deal with not only the loss of life for them, for that unit, but also for the entire department, all the men and women that work underneath him.
Yeah, and again, we don't have a word on when Sheriff Luna is going to want to address the media, because obviously he's got to focus on what's going on here. And just by when you look at the stance of this environment, you see it's clearly not you don't see a lot of people running around. You do see the area cordoned off. Again, you don't know if there was any kind of crime scene. You don't know about any part of this investigation, but we do see it doesn't look like they are going in and out of cars. You see that cruiser where, the cruiser had the back window kind of blown out. So, but the way that the stance is, you can see there's a very large perimeter that they have quartered off to make sure that they can look at the evidence. And, Philip, Bruce, I know I don't need to tell you, but, many of us go out in the field and you see a lot of little markers, of evidence markers. As of right now, I don't see evidence markers.
To that end, they haven't. The thing is, when this blast happened, now you start to see, I do believe, look at, this is a lot of probably LAPD folks coming in as we get Air 7 back up above. But understand, one of the things that was very telling about this at the very early moments when Scott Reif got above this was the absolute lack of personnel anywhere near this. So you're going to have to put those markers, and as you're going to probably thinking, the shell casings and the little things like that,
right.
You'd have to be in that crime scene. And we heard 911 call from the dispatcher said earlier, they actually told them from the jump, stand down, don't approach the site. So for the evidence markers that you're speaking of, that's probably going to come. But I think this next step, and Bruce, you correct me if I'm wrong, this next step, they're still getting LAPD's bomb squad in place, in position to maybe even put the rovers in there to try to get in there and get eyes on this scene and make sure that it's not still volatile. Bruce, is that maybe where we're going?
Yeah, that's 100% correct. I mean, you want to get eyes on this. You want to see whatever you can look for that happened at the incident. The other thing, too, is you do have a crime scene. You do have a industrial accident to some degree. So you don't want to contaminate it. So that has to be very calculated. What is our route in? What is our route out without disturbing the rest of it? The other thing, too, is you're looking at a safe zone of maybe 300 feet in circumference around the actual detonation or incident.
Okay, Bruce, thank you very much. And let me just ask our producers, is Monica available? Is Monica still available on the ground? Okay, so Monica D'Anda is on the ground near the scene, and she was able to tell us a moment ago that Sheriff Luna had come on the scene. Monica, what has happened in the developments for you throughout this past half hour?
Well, really, Philip and Colleen, we have continued to see a lot of law enforcement vehicles, both marked and unmarked, from the multiple agencies continue to make their way up this hill into this facility here. It's a training facility. We know this is where the bomb squad is located. And we do know, as you said, that Sheriff Luna is now on the scene. We are waiting to hear from him. Of course, he has a lot of things to do right now, including notifying those families. And he is, for the first time, getting his first look at what happened here on the ground. And it's going to take a lot of time to truly piece together what happened here, right? We know this is a multi-agency investigation. The FBI is involved, the ATF, LAPD's bomb squad, and that is just the beginning of this. It's likely going to take days to piece together really what happened. But we do want to get to an interview that we did about 15 minutes ago with a security guard who says he works here at the training facility about what he heard when this explosion happened. Take a listen.
Actually, I just didn't hear anything. I went to the restroom just to, I usually always go to the restroom. And then after, I just come out, and then I just see a lot of sheriff vehicles coming up to the Sheriff's Academy.
So that's just one reaction. He was really surprised. Other people tell us they heard the loud boom. So really a lot of information coming from here. We are still seeing these agencies make their way inside to the facility. One thing that I do want to note that I mentioned earlier for our viewers that are just now joining us, this is a truly heart-wrenching situation, right? A lot of the sheriff's deputies are now working the scene and preserving it, keeping the media at bay. They have just lost someone who they work with closely, that they know and love like a family member. So this is really tough on them. I've seen some of them get emotional as they process what's happening and continue to do their job. So 3 people killed so far in this deadly explosion. As we continue to learn more, we'll of course update you. For now, live here in the city of Terrace, Monica D'Anda, ABC 7 Eyewitness News.
Yeah, Monica, again, we do know that the law enforcement is a family out there. I don't know, have any of them talked to you at all about what they're hearing or anything about what the investigation looks like? And we are going to be going on air for our linear coverage in just a moment. But have you heard anybody talk to you about this?
Not much. I did just, express my condolences, and they said thank you. But other than that, they are very focused on doing their job and keeping everyone at bay for now.
All right. Thank you very much, Monica D'Anda. We appreciate your live coverage down on the ground right there as we continue to follow this breaking news that has been now unfolding for the past 2.5 hours, Philip.
So we're about 30 seconds away from a quick break so that we can go on to ABC 7. So if you'll bear with us, here's what we're going to do. We're going to pause and then kind of reset. Then we will come up for a live cut-in on ABC 7.
This is Eyewitness News with live breaking news.
We do have breaking news. This is a deadly explosion at the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department training facility. At least 3 people have been killed. I'm Philip Palmer along with Colleen Sullivan, and we are going to give you a quick update as to what's been going on so far this morning, Colleen.
Yeah, we are still on top of this breaking news. Very few details on exactly what happened, but here is what we do know. We do know that there believed to be an accident. It happened just before 7:30 a.m. again at the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department compound that's believed to house the Sheriff's Department's special enforcement units and their bomb squad. So we know some kind of blast happened. And we do know that 3 sheriff's deputies lost their lives in the blast. You can see it right there, cornered off. There is an investigation happening right now. We know a lot of mutual aid, other jurisdictions are helping in this investigation.
ABC News has confirmed that there was an explosion. There were explosives in this. It was not some sort of electrical or some other idea that might have happened. It was explosives that happened and caused this blast. The devastation, tremendous. The 3 deaths all happened right around that explosion. Monica DeAnda is in the field. She is on scene, and she joins us now to talk about what she has seen. She's been kept pretty far away from the site of the explosion, and actually, Monica, they have actually moved you on several occasions.
Yeah, they moved us back, then they moved us a little forward, and we're allowed to stay here now. We're off of Sheriff Road here. If you're familiar with this training facility, probably not, but if you've driven by, you have to go up the hill, which is why this is the closest we can get. They have clearly taped off this scene here and making sure they're preserving it for investigative purposes, but we're seeing a lot of vehicles from many different agencies. We're talking the FBI, the ATF, LAPD's bomb squad. We know they're all now on the ground assisting in this deadly explosion that has killed 3 people that work with the LA County Sheriff's Department. We know Sheriff Luna is now on scene. We've heard from Mayor Karen Bass, who is also asking for prayers for the families and the friends of the people who have lost their lives. Air 7 has been overhead for this since 7 o'clock this morning. We have some video to show you of that, where you can see an overhead view of that facility. And what it was that our Scott Reif was seeing when he first got here, he was able to tragically see 3 bodies are covered. Now, as we have said, we were learning that there were some explosives involved in this situation and that 3 employees are believed to be dead. We know that the Sheriff's Enforcement Bureau personnel was handling some sort of material when there was a blast. So we are expecting to hear from Sheriff Luna at some point. When we learn more, we will, of course, update you all. For now, send it back to you guys.
Monica, I have a quick question for you. Have you seen any sort of ambulances? Was anybody else injured in this blast? We know that we have 3 people who lost their lives, but you know, I know it happened early, just before 7:30 a.m., but have you seen any sort of emergency response from anyone needing to be transported to any hospitals?
Okay, so good question, Colleen. We have seen some ambulances move their way and head on up the hill. Whether or not they are for someone who has been injured or just to stand by, that is something that we are unaware about. We have no confirmation of any further injuries besides those 3 people who have lost their lives today.
It's just so sad. All right, I know it's unfolding. I know you're put in a position where you're getting as much information as you can from your vantage point, and it's very difficult. But thank you very much, Monica, for that live report. We're also going to bring in Bruce Thomas, our law enforcement expert. Bruce, you're very well versed in everything law enforcement. Can you tell us, we're in the early stages of this. We do not know exactly what caused this blast, but we do know these are highly trained personnel. They're used to handling explosives. Can you tell us, walk us through what you think could have happened or just what you're seeing right now from our live images from Air 7?
Yeah, you know, once again, you know, as we all know, we never want to make an assumption. But in this case, they were handling some sort of explosive, whether in-house or out-of-house, and something tragically went wrong. Everything they do has a protocol and a checklist, so to speak, of how they handle things, how they deal with things. So you never want to say a shortcut was taken, but obviously something went wrong in that checklist.
Bruce, we want to also point out, and you've said it, Colleen has said it, we've all said it, there is nothing routine about what these incredible people are doing every single day. It is dangerous every moment, and it could be life-altering in an instant. There's nothing routine about being here. So thank you, Bruce, for joining us. And you know, earlier we spoke with David Ono, our colleague here at ABC7, and David has actually trained with these people, with the Sheriff's Department at that site. And we talked with him earlier about what might have been going on during this time of day. And as you mentioned, Colleen, the incredible skill of the people involved.
This is an unprecedented, as Monica was talking about, an unprecedented accident that I find shocking, and I'm sure the Sheriff's Department finds it that way as well. in training with SCB, I learned so much about how they operate and how elite this group is. They're considered one of the top SWAT units in the world. And in fact, when I was training with them in their academy, we had many SWAT members from other parts of the world, from Italy. We had Navy SEALs with us training, and they're exceptional people who know their craft really well. And during our training, and it's a week-long academy, it gets really intense, and part of that training is explosives training. They teach you how to handle an explosion when you're nearby and avoid concussion, what to do with your ears, what to do with your mouth, and then they'll do stuff like blow off a door, and then you run inside and you're stacked with your group. And then you do a lot of classroom training as well on how to handle explosives, what to do with explosives when they're nearby. So to see an accident like this is really shocking because these guys are so careful and they're so good at what they do, especially at FEB.
Yeah, we've been talking about a highly trained, highly competitive to get onto this sort of team. Again, we are watching these developing news, breaking news, all morning long coverage. We do have live team coverage coming up on Eyewitness News at 11 a.m. We are learning that a mobile command post is arriving on scene. We are going to bring you back to regular programming, but Philip and I will be on abc7.com streaming or wherever you stream ABC7. So stay with us for our breaking coverage on our streaming platforms of what we are now going to bring you back to regular programming.
Okay, welcome back to our stream. I'm Philip Palmer along with Colleen Sullivan. We have several reporters who are on the scene. Scott Reif has been above this. Again, we continue to follow this breaking news of at least 3 people dead. This happening shortly after 7:30. I'm just getting this from the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department. A critical workplace incident occurred. That is what they are calling it. A critical workplace incident occurred. This was at the East Los Angeles Biscaluz training facility. 3 department member fatalities. Sheriff's homicide detectives are on scene, as is FBI, LA, ATF, and they are all assisting LASD. This is an active scene. Further details will be forthcoming. That is the most recent statement that we have gotten, and actually, quite literally, I think the first statement that we have heard from the Sheriff's Department. And again, they are acknowledging what they call a critical workplace incident, and they are acknowledging 3 fatalities. Now, Colleen, you mentioned a moment ago when we were talking with Monica about ambulances, and I would like to point out what we were watching here when Scott Reif was above it. He was above it very early on, and that was a remarkable scene that there just didn't seem to be anybody else there. It didn't seem to be ambulances, didn't seem to be victims. It seemed to be, oddly enough, just directed at these 3 people. That could be wrong. Maybe we missed something, but in this point, we've not seen any personnel trying to assist injured folks.
Well, I can imagine it. I think I've told it before. My father was in law enforcement. So, and this is a training facility. So a training facility operates different than a precinct or a police department where it's dispatch. This is in a sort of a remote area where if they are going here, it is usually for a specific training exercise, or they know that they've collected something that they need to investigate, but it's not something that that's flutter of activity. This is, again, a training facility. So I can imagine at around 7, whatever time that these law enforcement officials are there, it's before anyone's really arriving, because this is one of those kind of 9 to 5 type of places where people are coming in for a normal work day. They do have a lot of training and they have off hours, but when you do certain specialized training, they do it off-site in very remote areas. So, but again, they have all these vehicles there, and it's you see that hole right over the top of that tent where this blast took place. It makes you want to know what was inside that vehicle and how did they come in contact with it? Were they collecting it? Again, we were talking about, we are in the month of July where so many illegal fireworks are being made. And I think that anybody who has been around Los Angeles during the 4th of July, you know, it's not people with just sparklers. They have some incredibly powerful fireworks that they light off. So again, we don't know what was inside this unit, what they were trying to contain, how it was being handled, but David said it, you've said it. We know Bruce Thomas is on the phone. These are very highly trained individuals. They have trained so much to get to this unit. They're not new to law enforcement. They cut their teeth, and along the way, this is the goal, to get to one of these arson explosives units so they can. It's fascinating, and I'm sure, you know, didn't you say, Philip? We know that. I think Attorney General Pam Bondi, she said the special federal agents are going to be responding. So you're going to have the top explosive experts out here. Oh, and Monica also. Monica DeAnda, you're down on the ground. We were just hearing that the mobile command post that was arriving. Have you seen any more activity? What have you been seeing arriving to this facility?
Yeah, Colleen, Philip, LASD's command post just pulled up about a minute ago, followed by, again, more vehicles, some of them unmarked with the Sheriff's Department, some of them marked, and it's just been very active out here. We know the FBI is on scene, the ATF, LAPD's bomb squad also here to assist. So really a lot of traffic going in and out of the facility. It's located up around here on the hill. You have to go all around the corner. This is the closest we can get, but we do have Air 7 video to show you. Of course, we've been overhead for hours now since this all unfolded, and we are hearing now for the first time from the Sheriff's Department. They are confirming that shortly after 7:30 this morning, a critical workplace incident occurred here at this training facility. They say tragically there were 3 department member fatalities, so 3 people killed in this deadly explosion. Lots of questions, right? What happened here? What kind of exercise, if any, were they doing at the moment? Or were they just moving something, right? What kind of gear were they wearing? Very detailed questions that we don't have the answer to at this moment. We do know that Sheriff Luna is now on scene, and we're hoping to hear from him here in the coming hour, hopefully. No confirmation on that, right? He has a lot of things going on right now, but this is just really tragic, unprecedented, and a lot of the deputies who are now here blocking off the scene, if you will, they are also going through the grieving process. They are mourning. I've seen a lot of them wipe away tears and really just look at each other and shake their heads, right? They can't believe this happened. So definitely answers are going to want to be known, but at this time, right, that we're going to continue to be here and to see what more we can learn. For now, again, confirming 3 people were killed in this explosion. Back to you guys.
Okay, Monica, thank you. And we want to point out what you're looking at is video from Air 7. This was shot earlier, and as Monica was pointing out, Scott Reif was there very early. Right now, a lot of the helicopter images are going to be much further away because there's been a temporary flight restriction placed of 2 miles and 5,000 feet above, in and around this explosion site. So Scott Reif was with us for upwards of 2 hours. He had to leave to get fuel for the helicopter. We will, of course, as we continue our coverage, eventually get the helicopter back up over. But we did want to point out that many of those images that you're looking at right there are recorded images from earlier. And we do have a lot of reaction coming in, even as this investigation hasn't even really begun.
Yeah, well, as one would expect, Mayor Karen Bass, she released a statement on X saying the city of LA is supporting the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department headquarters through this horrific incident in Monterey Park. The LAFD, ATF, arson investigators, and members of the LAPD bomb squad, they're all assisting at this training facility. The thoughts of all Angelenos are on all of those impacted by this blast. I'm sure people living in this area of Monterey Park this morning, they heard this. It had to be absolutely shocking to hear. And again, we also are seeing from County Supervisor Catherine Barger, I am heartbroken to hear of the terrible tragedy that has unfolded today at an LA County Sheriff's Department facility. I'm closely tracking the situation as we learn more about what occurred and the condition of those affected. My heart is heavy, and my thoughts are with the brave men and women of the Sheriff's Department during this difficult time. I stand with them and their families as they navigate the hours and days ahead, which we know this is going to be several, not just days. This is going to be a lengthy investigation into what exactly happened.
Well, we've seen some of the statements, and I'm looking at some of the video that Scott Reif had shot earlier. That's what this is now a live shot. So Scott is now back up and live, and Colleen pointed something out as we bring Scott back into this. Scott, I'm looking at the tarp that is above them. Now I'm starting to see it flutter around a little bit. Was that possibly lost due to the explosion there? That's the first time I've really actually noticed the tarp above the vehicles seeming to be damaged.
Yeah, that's very possible, Philip. I mean, when we were down low, I didn't really recognize that, but we were looking at so many other factors. I want to address one thing that you said, that when we did see the picture, there was nobody here, and that was the case because they held everybody out. The fire department had responded, but they were way away from the scene. I also want to let you know we have an unconfirmed report, but we believe it's fairly accurate. It's a tip, and it sounds like a pretty good one. There may have been one other person injured. We're working on trying to confirm that, but that was a tip. Also, something very interesting, Marcel was able to talk to an LA County Sheriff's deputy who had a real good insight on exactly what goes on here early in the morning. And their theory was this, that they were loading the trucks, the bomb squad trucks, and possibly one of the disruptors went off. Now, a disruptor is a specialized tool, an explosive device that they use to safely explode another device that they believe may be an explosive device. So you have a suitcase in the middle of the street with a wire hanging out. They'll get the robot out there to make sure it's not full of explosives, but if they don't know exactly what's in it, a lot of times they'll go out there with a robot, they'll put a disruptor up against it, which is a directional charge, and that will go off, and that will explode whatever is inside that package because they've cleared the area. That sometimes they feel that's the safest way to proceed. And that type of activity, loading the truck at that time of the morning, according to that LA County Sheriff's deputy, is what they are doing sometimes. So that was his theory. Obviously, it's speculation, but that's from someone who works with the Sheriff's Department and knows what's going on in that backyard at the bomb squad at 7:30 in the morning. So it very well could be that that is a good insight as to what happened here. As far as when we first arrived on scene, they had cleared the area immediately, and then they walked in to cover the two bodies. One body had already been covered, but that body was a little further away. Now, our shot is going to go in and out in some weird directions because they're making us climb to 5,000 feet and get above the TFR right now, and that's why we're shooting straight down, and it's hard to see. But they are mobilizing in force around this. You talked about all the other departments that are here. Of course, you may see an ambulance come in. You'll see several ambulances standing by because they're working with explosives, but they're not here to treat anybody that was injured. That's pretty clear at this point in time. They're just here as a precaution. They're responding just in case because they still really don't know exactly what they're dealing with.
Well, and it's good that you have that source that said there might be another injury. And as we played earlier, Scott, to your point about the dispatcher from the very beginning was telling people stand down, stay away from that spot. So that also talks about what you're saying, where when you got there, there weren't a lot of people around, but there's possibility that they had already transported the potential victim, the possible victim, away from there. And Scott, to that end, we hope the best for that victim if there is one, but that's also a beginning of the investigation as well. I mean, if there is a survivor of this, that's going to be a lot as far as helping these folks if that person can communicate to them.
Are you all the way in, Marcel? Yeah, we're all the way in from 5,000. You can see the two bodies. Now, when we got here, they weren't covered. Somebody moved in and covered them. Off to the left, you see the blue tarp. That was the third body. That was already covered when we got here. It's hard to tell from here, but from our initial shot, you see the ramp is down on the truck. It gave us the impression they were moving things around in this area. There's something that looks like, right next to that one body, a little piece of a cart possibly. Mm-hmm. That's sort of the takeaway that we got when we saw it. Certainly we couldn't confirm that for sure. And then that device we talked about, a disruptor, is directional. And it does look like the charge went from the truck, from the bomb squad truck, and it went to the right, which would be to the south, because you look, if you can't really see because they're so far away, but next to that vehicle right there, I think it's 625 if I'm not mistaken, that's all the glass that was blown out from the rear window. It gives you an idea of the direction of the blast. You don't see a lot of debris spread out all over the place, and that's why the sheriff's deputy was saying it really gives them an indication that it may have been one of those disruptors.
Obviously, we know, Scott, Colleen here with you. We know that this is going to be a very lengthy investigation. I can't help but wonder whose backpack that belonged to. It's right by that police cruiser. It's to the left. It's right there. I know we have focused on it. It's right by where the windows were blasted out of that cruiser. It's somewhat peculiar that it looks like that's the only cruiser that suffered any kind of damage from this blast, even though there are other cars closer.
Yeah, well, I think if you look at the direction being directional right towards that vehicle, I think there might have been another vehicle that had damage to it as well. It was really hard for us to tell. Several of those. It's just the one that blew out the window completely, and you could see it all on the asphalt there. As far as the bag is concerned, I mean, it's impossible to tell if it blew that direction from the initial blast zone. You have to understand there was somebody down here after the explosion because those bodies were not covered. Somebody came in, covered the bodies, and then got out of the area. Whether they left the backpack, they dropped the backpack, whether they had tarps in the backpack, they were using that to cover the bodies or sheets. It's really hard to tell at this point in time, but it's unusual to see an explosion that would be big enough to kill 3 people, tragically, more than likely sheriff's deputies, although not confirmed yet, without more of a blast area. And that was one of the reasons the deputies like, look, that's what a disruptor does. It goes in one direction. It's a pretty hard blast. And they do load those on the trucks, according to this individual. About that time of the morning, they get the trucks ready for the day. And it could be one disruptor, or if one went off, it could make another one go off. And so that's certainly a valid possibility. It makes sense logically with the scene that we see.
Well, and again, we don't want to make too many assessments, but that backpack could have been launched there.
Yeah, that's what I was
it could have
That's
been very specifically. That backpack could have been what broke the windshield at the back window, and that may be another reason why there's just so specific damage to this. Scott, I keep coming back to when you talked about the placement of the victims here. There was a person that was almost away from the explosion there. You can understand the 2 that were right by what might have been the source of the explosion, but then the person with the blue tarp, that was such an odd thing to be able to see that person on the other side of a truck.
Yeah, whether they were hurt and they walked there. I mean,
Right.
it just, there's so many possibilities in a situation like this, but they were fairly far. The body was fairly far from the blast zone. Where they were when the blast occurred, that's just impossible to really tell at this point in time, but it was somewhat unusual to see the 2 bodies. And, we talked a little about it possibly being training, but they did not have training gear on. The 2, what appeared to be deputies, were face down. They were, their bodies were mangled. Their uniforms were ripped off. And it wasn't long after we got here, then someone did walk up, and I didn't actually see that person. They did walk up. They covered those 2 bodies, but when we got on scene, the body a little further away, covered by the blue tarp, that was already covered when we got here. I think we got here within maybe 12 minutes of the actual blast, somewhere around that. We got lucky, we were right at the helicopter and ready to go and all fueled up. And it's not a long flight from Van Nuys Airport to here, so we were able to get overhead very quickly. But, it's such a sad incident to lose 3 individuals here.
Yeah, and you thinking about the investigation that's, underway right now as everyone's trying to piece together what happened. I'm sure there is quite a bit of video. It would be shocking to not have video of so many angles of what happened, even though they do have these tents above these vehicles.
Sure.
But there should be some video evidence to figure out what were they handling. When did they collect this, what they were working with? When did they collect it? How they were going to try to detonate it or disarm it? There's just so many questions. But again, when you're talking about an explosives unit, you know that that's why they're specialized personnel to work with it, because just so highly dangerous, the materials that they come in contact. You know, they're responsible for all the calls that come around, you know, LA County, where any kind of explosive device, they have their robots. If they knew that this was so dangerous, I'm sure Scott and Philip, they would have probably been using one of their robots to help figure out what they were working with.
Well, if they were, and Bruce Thomas is joining us now, and we had talked about this with Scott earlier, because initially we thought maybe something was being taken out of one of the vehicles, and then we thought, well, you know, it's a ramp. Maybe they're putting something into the vehicle. And Bruce, if we're talking about this disruptor, that is, you know, Scott was talking about it, that is a very specific tool that is used by the bomb squad. I would assume, and tell me if I'm wrong here, that just like with a gun, there is a safety on the gun that prevents it from going off. But
Yeah.
clearly
Yeah.
it seems as if there would have been something like that with this disruptor. And maybe that's a source of the investigation where you start to decide, okay, what's going on?
Yeah, you know, you're very correct on this, Philip. You know, could it have been a failure of the device that's used by the department to render objects, briefcases, backpacks safe when they actually were out in the field? Was it a failure of the electronics of the device, or was it human error? You never want to speculate, but obviously the investigation will have to continue, and that's going to take a long time.
Not about it, Bruce. There's just so these investigations, they're so interesting because there's so many different verticals, or, you know, sort of places that they have to go. What was the device? They have to figure out how was the personnel, what were they doing? Again, we know that this is a training facility, but obviously there wasn't a huge training operation that was happening. And Bruce, I was saying it earlier, you know, my father is a former law enforcement a police officer, and he was also highly specialized on the SWAT team. And there's so many different specialties within these specialized units. So knowing that these people with the explosives unit, they're trained. So that's why it obviously, there's so much to this investigation, looking at them, looking how long they've been on the job, looking at what material they were handling, because clearly it was so powerful.
Yeah, as we talked about, you know, on and off camera, about your relatives on the department and the specialty that he has gone through training-wise, the arson and explosives deputies are so highly trained. They have hundreds of hours, and not just initially, but ongoing, every month, every year, with federal agencies that are involved in this, ATF, FBI. But in this case, you know, you do have to have Sheriff's Homicide will be involved in this investigation, as you do have the loss of 3 personnel. You know, you're using LAPD to come in and render the scene safe and possibly get eyes on this. So, you know, it's going to take hours and hours before they can even determine, okay, it's safe enough for us to go in to start to do the investigation, start mapping out debris, start to get some sense of what happens.
And Bruce, we talked about all of the different agencies that are involved in this. Can you give us the mood there? Is there, I don't want to call it a turf war per se, but will there be any argument over who's in charge? They haven't named who's the lead agency at this point, but what's the esprit de corps there? I mean, is it going to be one of those moments where it's all support?
Yeah, it's all support at this point. There's no, you know, who's the bigger man on campus, so to speak. This is a unified command that the Sheriff's Department will be involved in, LAPD will be involved in. Both will be part of the investigation. But ultimately, you're going to have Sheriff's Homicide is going to be the lead agency or the lead entity in this. The FBI is there to support and help gather evidence. Everybody is just being supportive at this point, mindful that there has been a tragic loss of life.
Yeah, and Bruce, really quickly, you know, we were talking about it, and I am a daughter of a law enforcement. A lot of things happen at training as well, as, you know, the personnel gets used to certain exercises. I know my father was hurt by a grenade once. I remember he had to go to the hospital. It was very traumatic. I was little, but you think when someone's going to training, it's just a fun training exercise. It's very, very serious, and they do work with live ammunition. I don't know if they work with live ammunition here while it's so, it's a tight area and it's in a residential area. I know that with his department, they ended up always going off site and going pretty far away, actually. But again, training exercise, we always want to say, this happened at a training exercise. A lot of people do get hurt during training exercises.
Yeah, 100% correct, Colleen. Whenever we do training, you do have law enforcement personnel that come to the training with guns, with bullets, and the instructors and even the supervisors. We go through each and every person and inspect their gun belt, make sure their weapon's empty, make sure they don't even have bullets or tear gas or knives, anything that, you can take out of that domino so when it falls, it doesn't hit something. But I know I've been in training where we were using less lethal, and we actually fired what we believed to be safe, and the round came back at us. Yes. So things happen in training. Unfortunately, you try to take every possible, thing into account. But you're right, things do happen.
Yeah, best laid plans always go awry, as one says. We're also finding out, you're talking about the different agencies that are going to be assisting with this investigation. We're learning that LAPD Chief Jim McDonald, he is also on the scene right there, and that his department is also assisting with their SWAT bomb squad, and that their canines are also being called out. So it's just interesting to see how vast this investigation is going to be.
We also have a statement from Janice Hahn. I'm sorry, go ahead, Bruce.
No, I was just going to say, one of the other things, too, this is going to be a lesson learned. This will be something that will be briefed possibly worldwide with arson explosives units and with other police agencies, not just nationally, locally, but also internationally.
Well, and to that end, if we find out that there's a defective piece of equipment, that could potentially save lives in the future. It could be we learn new ways to transport equipment. We could find out that something was flawed. I mean, to your point, Bruce, that's one of the reasons why they want to know so much about what happened, because there will be lives saved in the future because of what happened today. But today, if you look at this post from Janice Hahn, as you can imagine, this is an extraordinary, painful day for our Sheriff's Department and for LA County. My prayers are with the family of the deputies and their colleagues in law enforcement who are reeling from this tragedy. That is from Supervisor Hahn's office, and I think that, Colleen, touches on what Bruce and I were talking about and what you have mentioned. And we spoke with David, and when John was out here, we are covering this as a news story because it is information that needs to be passed along. But we are not immune to the fact that we know there are families that are grieving right now. Sheriff Luna was just here yesterday. He is probably overwhelmed with the task ahead of him because there are 3 lives lost from the Sheriff's Department, and we know that is going to have a ripple effect on their immediate family and then the family of law enforcement across this state. So we continue our coverage here. 3 deaths at the Special Enforcement Bureau site. And we do talk a lot about training that goes on here. David Ono has been here. He talked about that. But it's important to note this might not have been training. This might have been simply loading the truck. It could have been that.
Working.
We don't know what happened, and that is what's going to be happening.
Yeah, and I'm just learning from our producer that we're getting some sound from the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Dispatch. I can only assume that this was when the incident occurred. Let's take a listen.
To confirm, that's related to an explosion at 1060 Northeastern Avenue. Eastern Avenue, explosion at location 2 down at SCB, further to follow.
240 David did report an explosion with 3 down. Fire is also notified. All deputies responding to SCB be notified that 240 David is requesting that you stand down and don't approach the explosion at this time.
So that was the dispatcher call, and that's, Colleen, what we were talking about earlier when we said that we didn't see a lot of people around. It's because they were directed not to go near it because they didn't know the source of the explosion. And that has been the thing. They have really created a very wide crime scene because the investigation, the respect for those who are lost, and the protection of evidence so that they can really find out what exactly happened here. We want to go to Monica D'Anda now. She is very near the scene, of not incredibly close because they have moved her away. But Monica, what do you have for us?
Well, Philip and Colleen, we are just down the road. This is actually called Sheriff Road, and if you go up this way, that is where that training facility is located. It's up on a hill. Again, we have now confirmed that 3 deputies have been killed in this deadly explosion. It happened just after 7:30, with the LA Sheriff's Department saying that this has been a critical incident and they are asking for prayers at this time. We know Sheriff Luna is out here, and we continue to see even now, right? I've been here for about 2 hours now, and there are still plenty of law enforcement vehicles making their way up and into this facility. We have the FBI on scene, the ATF on scene, LAPD bomb squad, their SWAT team. So many law enforcement agencies are out here assisting. Right now, they are themselves trying to figure out who exactly is going to take the lead on this investigation, right? Lots of questions. Of course, a lot of people wondering what happened, what led up to this explosion, and of course that will be part of the investigation. But we are also learning, sources telling ABC News that it appears the Sheriff's Enforcement Bureau personnel were handling some sort of explosives. People are dead, and it's been really emotional out here, I will say, Philip and Colleen, because a lot of the people who are now out here making sure the media doesn't get in or that traffic doesn't go through this area, they have just lost a brother or a sister, right? They are family here, not only LASD, but the law enforcement at large. So this is truly heartbreaking for them, and they are having to work through this. So we will continue to bring you any further updates. We're hoping to hear from the sheriff soon, and of course, as soon as we do, we'll bring that over to you live. For now, reporting in the City Terrace area of East Los Angeles, Monica D'Anda, ABC 7 Eyewitness News.
Monica, thank you, and you're absolutely right. You know, I know that we do have heavy hearts when you see, you know, you can just see these law enforcement. They're walking slowly. You know, we always see them running into investigations, but it's just a heavy heart hanging over this area. You know, 3 people lost their lives. Somebody else may have been injured. We're still trying to learn specific details. Again, Scott Reif, you're overhead in Air 7. As you take a look, right, we're all talking about this is a tragedy, and we don't exactly know what happened.
No, we certainly don't, although I have a good feeling that the authorities now have some sort of idea what happened here, what type of device it was. We've seen what appear to be LAPD bomb squad officers walk up to the bodies, walk up to the area where the explosion was, and they're not in their full guard. They're not in their, you know, their full outfit for explosions or anything like that. So we're seeing some movement around here. They know, the deputies that were here, what their task was for the day and what they would have been working with. So they're going to have some idea. And because they're moving in and they're walking up to this location and not going in with a robot, it leads me to believe that there's not a huge concern that there's going to be a secondary explosion. On another note, you talked about training, and this is a huge center. You know, the SCB, like a SWAT team for the Sheriff's Department, they keep the armored vehicles here. There's some canine here. There's also a training facility here, but that is not a training lot. And obviously, it's possible that it was training, but the individuals we saw did not have on their explosive gear, and it would be an odd place to do training. This is not the training area. There's a facility where they do that. So it is possible, but it seems somewhat unlikely from what we are seeing now. It just looks like a horrible accident. Something occurred, something caused an explosion of an explosive device here in this back lot of the bomb squad for the Sheriff's Department. But we're seeing more and more movement. It looks like they're moving in, and that leads me to believe that they may have a bit of an idea what the explosive was, and we're going to see a lot more movement. It looks like LAPD is going to be the one that's going to be in charge. Moving in, there you see the ATF is here, the FBI is here, so everyone is pulling in, offering support. I believe the LAPD more than likely will be the main their bomb squad will be the main unit that will go in and secure the area. But they are in the process of doing that now. We're seeing them walk around, and they didn't go in their full gear, their full bomb gear, when they walked up to this area, which once again leads me to believe that they don't believe there's much of a chance of a secondary explosion.
Well, Scott, to that end, I mean, they know, we talked about this earlier, they likely knew through the day log as far as what jobs are being assigned and who's doing what and where. They probably knew exactly what this crew was doing and who was there after they had a chance to, quickly secure. That was the thing. Initially, everybody was to stay away. But then once you have a chance to start talking to supervisors and finding out what was set to go that day, it does seem as if you might have a much better idea as to whether it's safe there to now approach. I just get that feeling, but you still have to be careful, right? I mean, the bomb squad still needs to be a part of this.
Of course, but we had an LAPD officer. It appeared to be an LAPD officer, and it wasn't in their full gear, so I believe it was a bomb squad officer from the LAPD. And they walked, I don't know if you saw it, but they walked right up to the two bodies. They stopped, they put something on the ground, and then they walked away. Then they walked back around and they went over to the blue tarp. They looked underneath the van, they walked around the back, and they didn't do that in full protective gear. Now, if they thought there was going to be a secondary explosion, they would have been fully geared up or sent in the robot when they went in there. So it just gives me an idea, a feeling that they have a real good idea what they're dealing with based on just what you said, what the logs show, what those deputies' tasks were for the day, and what they were working with, what type of explosives they may have been working with.
Yeah, it obviously so many unanswered questions right now. But again, we are hoping that Sheriff Luna will address the media, but obviously he's still working himself, trying to figure out exactly what's going on here. We do, Scott, stay tight right there. We do have a statement from Governor Gavin Newsom on the state has deployed investigative personnel from the Office of the State Fire Marshal at the request of the ATF. So they are also en route. So we do know that a lot of people, a lot of different agencies are coming in to help assist in this investigation, which also tells you, Scott, that there are going to be a lot of people are going to be working together.
Jay, did you want to tell me something?
Jay is actually with us right now, Scott. So
I'm sorry, I didn't hear your question. Marcel was telling me there's an officer standing right next to the ramp right in there, and I can't see it in my monitor. Maybe you see it in yours. And I'm sorry, Colleen, I didn't hear your question if you had one.
Well, no, I was just saying that we were reading a statement from Governor Gavin Newsom and saying, extra personnel are also being brought out and at the request of the ATF. So we know that law enforcement is asking for more help. They want to get to the bottom of this, and they're not afraid to ask for help. Yeah, you're seeing that officer right there, Scott, and I have been actually seeing the officers, possibly this officer, on his hands and knees looking under each of these big vehicles to see if there's any sort of evidence under them as well.
Yeah, and you can see what kind of appears to be the cart that we talked about earlier, Philip. There's a little bit of something right there. I don't know, and it was really hard for us to discern. And now that we're at 5,000 feet, it's even a little more difficult. But obviously what we're seeing is officers walk right up to the blast zone, and they're not in their full safety gear. So it just means to me they know what they're dealing with. They have a pretty good idea what happened here based on what the tasks were today, and they're really not concerned that there's going to be another explosion. But boy, what a difficult thing to have to investigate, to have to go through, and to have to look at. You've got, when we got here, those bodies were uncovered, and it was extremely graphic. Fortunately, they moved in there and covered them pretty quickly. But somebody moved in, even though they didn't know what they were dealing with, and felt it was important enough to run in there and cover those bodies immediately or within 10 to 15 minutes of the blast, and then they all backed out. But as far as the scene is concerned and the investigation is concerned, they are moving forward. The fact that they believe that they are actually moving in and they're starting to take a look at the surroundings and look at what they have here, that is some progress as far as moving forward to find out exactly what happened.
Well, and we do, not to tell you guys your business, but we've mentioned that your monitors are fairly small in the helicopter. We are also going to be very cautious as to how closely we zoom in on these victims, because even as it's not as graphic as it was at the beginning of the day, it is still deeply troubling when you look at and realize that you're looking at deputies, you're looking at victims of this explosion. We are approaching a moment where we're going to break away to do a cut-in, what we call it, a cut-in on ABC7. Our linear television will continue our stream here as we are looking at live images from Air 7. We have ground crews also that you see on the right. Scott Reif was above this very early on in the day. The investigation is just in its early stages. We have statements from many elected officials. We also have brief information from Sheriff Luna. I heard just something about a press conference. Okay, there is a noon press conference that we will carry live on ABC7. So it will be here on our streaming platforms. It will also be on ABC7. It is scheduled for noon. But let's all understand the fluidity of what is going on today. That could be moved. So that is the tentative schedule right now at noon. We will bring that to you when it happens. We have one more minute here to kind of wrap this up before we go to the linear side, but our streaming is going to continue. But Colleen, it's just, it's hard to imagine how this is going to impact the law enforcement community, whether it's sheriffs or any of the investigators who are on the scene.
I think anyone who comes upon this investigation and they start looking at all the details, it is going to impact them. And it is going to, I know Bruce Thomas said it earlier, this is one of those things where it is a learning situation, because whatever was being handled, they're gonna find out, and they're gonna know how best to handle whatever material they were handling.
Yeah, we'll find out if it was human error or defective product or whatever might have happened. So we're going to pause just now for just a few seconds. We will resume this broadcast in just a few moments. We have breaking news, a deadly explosion at the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department training facility. This is in the City Terrace area of East LA. 3 deputies have died today. There are unconfirmed reports of another injury. This incident, believed to be an accident, was reported just after 7:30. We will have the latest on this and much more coming up on Eyewitness News at 11 a.m.
All right, we're back on stream with our breaking news coverage of the deadly explosion that happened at the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department training facility. Bruce Thomas, our law enforcement expert. You know, Bruce, again, we know that a lot of law enforcement, they don't necessarily always want to work with other law enforcement agencies. But right now, we just read a moment ago that Governor Gavin Newsom, that the ATF is helping with this investigation, and they're asking for additional resources. So it leads you to believe that this is an all hands on deck sort of situation where because, you know, maybe because of the victims, or maybe because of the material that exploded. But everybody from all the different agencies, the federal agencies, the state agencies, locals, they're all being called in, and they're all going to be working together.
Yeah, they all lend an expertise to this incident. LAPD's bomb squad works with Sheriff's bomb squad. The feds, ATF, FBI, as evidence gatherers, all have an expertise which they'll lend to the bomb squad personnel. Then the state people come in also to provide resources, relief personnel, and also have an expertise. So it's all like building a puzzle. Everybody has a piece of the pie, or a piece of the puzzle in this case, and they build it and put it together, all in a supportive role. Egos go out the door. This is just a tragic incident.
It really is. And I was wondering if the other added sort of motivation is law enforcement, they are a family. They are thinking about the loved ones who are being impacted today. There are families who these people are probably fathers or mothers. They know that they have a lot of friends in this community. They respond. on the daily, I would say, these highly specialized personnel, and they are going to be so, remembered. And it's just tragic what happened here today.
Yeah, Colleen, as you said, it's not just the immediate family, the spouses, the children. It's also the members of the unit they work with. It's the 10,000 men and women of the LA County Sheriff's Department and the hundreds of other law enforcement agency personnel that they've contacted on a daily basis or at training. So this impacts a huge amount of people.
Yeah, and you're talking about 10,000 strong, and they live in our neighborhoods. Anyone who has a law enforcement member in your neighborhood, they're the people you always go to ask questions. Like, hey, they're sort of like the jack of all trades. They know how to answer your question. You can't figure out how to turn off your water. You go to one of the police officers or the sheriff's deputies who live near you, and you ask them a lot of questions. They really are there to help. So it's a profound impact on a community when you do lose people, and this wasn't necessarily in the line of duty, as we say, actively, but this happened in the line of duty, Bruce.
Yeah, that's correct. And obviously one of the things that is afforded, you have bodies on the ground. And I hate to be graphic or take away from that fact, but there's a protocol that has to be dealt with that. Once the coroner gets there, they will probably put flags over the bodies, pick up or retrieve the bodies, escort them to the coroner's office in East LA, and then the investigation still continues at the scene, even though you're tragically moving 3 personnel.
Well, that protocol, I would assume, Bruce, almost saves you emotionally, in that it's a protective device, in that you have this standard operating procedure that must be followed, and maybe you are able to escape a little bit what has happened in front of you.
Yeah, Philip, you're correct. I mean, your emotions, and my wife has said this to me numerous times. She goes, "You don't cry." Well, law enforcement, we do cry. We cry privately, we cry with each other, but we can't show our emotions because we have a job to do.
I needed to ask you another thing, and clearly the names of the victims have not been released because the families need this moment. They must be supported and talked to and surrounded by loved ones. But just the idea of this specialized unit, this small but very skilled group of people who have gone through a lot of training, is it likely these are more senior veterans of the Sheriff's Department? I mean, and I know we're not trying to guess or talk about who it is, but I'm talking about the loss of a leadership position as well. You would think that people in this specialized area have gone through a lot of training, have been around the Sheriff's Department for quite some time.
Yeah, the names that I got, they do have vast experience on the department. And like you said, they go through hundreds, if not thousands of hours in training. So it's not just a loss of life, but it's a loss of expertise that now the others are going to have to step up and manage incidents that these personnel may have responded to. Either way, it's a huge void.
Well, and it's also touching more people, I guess, is where I'm going to, in the sense that you potentially worked with a couple of the victims. And I mean, when you start talking about the ripple effect of how many lives these deputies have touched over the years, it's an even greater wave of emotion.
Yeah, they started out as custody deputies, worked their way to a patrol station. From there, maybe became detectives, then put in for the specialized unit, were hand-selected, as they all are, and then they go to training, and then they work with a more seasoned deputy, arson explosives deputy, to do this. So, yeah, it's just so much experience that, you're going to lose.
Yeah, it is very sad. And, again, a lot of the elected officials, they've been releasing statements as this tragedy unfolds. We know we're hearing from Congresswoman Judy Chu. She just released a statement that we'll be bringing up on our image right here. And you can see that she says, "I'm heartbroken by the tragic news of the explosion at the LA County Sheriff's Headquarters training facility in Monterey Park that claimed the lives of 3 brave deputies. I'm monitoring the situation closely. My deepest condolences go out to the families, friends, and fellow law enforcement. We've been hearing from all of the elected officials this morning, basically echoing the same sentiment, that their hearts go out with them. Whatever resources that they can provide to help in the investigation, they're offering. Again, this is one of those things where it's so fluid out there, where once they start, uncovering one piece of information, then they realize that they need to bring in some more expertise in this industry. And this is a very specialized in the sense, Bruce, it's, there's a lot of detectives and there's a lot of, SWAT team members. This is highly specialized, being within a bomb explosives unit. These are, the narrowness of how many people are really specialized in this is very small.
Yeah, you're talking maybe 100, a handful for arson explosives that are so specialized and deal with this. A part of the arson explosives, too, is the hazardous materials component of the Sheriff's Department and the SEB. So they're all assigned to this facility, and they interact daily, if not hourly, with each other. So it's a huge punch in the stomach for this particular unit.
That was the first thing I said this morning, Bruce, when we came out here, that this was just a gut punch. Scott Reif in Air 7 above this scene, and you mentioned it from the first, Scott, when when Bruce talks about how this is going to impact people, you even thought about it when it first showed up. The uniqueness of this was just overwhelming to imagine. 3 people killed in this accident, and it just hits you so hard right at the jump.
Yeah, Philip, you're talking about, when Scott is shown from Air 7 AGD, you have the 2 bodies on the black tarps and the one in the blue tarp, which is kind of around the corner. And that's what explosives do. They have positive and negative pressure, and they're able to go around buildings and suck out air and cause injuries to people. So is that what happened? We will only find out.
Thanks, Bruce. And Scott is in Air 7. Scott, can you kind of build off of your reaction when you first came up?
Yeah, it was horrible. We got a call, and basically the call was there's an explosion here at the SCB Command Center here in East LA. And basically, we didn't know what to expect. And then as we got closer and closer and closer with the camera, we saw one person down, face down, appeared to be a sheriff's deputy. Then we saw another, and we're like, oh my goodness, this is bad. And then we saw a third. Not that one isn't horrific, but now we're just seeing a third, and we don't know if it's going to continue to climb. They'd already cleared the area, so all we saw is what you're seeing right now, except for the bodies were not covered. 2 of the bodies, they didn't appear to be in safety gear. They appeared to be in their normal uniforms. The 2 that we could see, they were both face down. They both appeared to be men, but we could not confirm that. And it was horrific. We showed up, and it just sort of extensionally got worse and worse and worse until we saw, oh my goodness, there's 3 here. And then as far as the impact on the department, it's going to be horrific. These guys are so tight-knit. There's no question about that. And now we just got to look into how this happened and make sure nothing like this ever happens again. And it looks like that's the process that is going on right now. But the response has been huge. The outpouring of support, every agency from around here, it appears to be here. LAPD is here, of course, the FBI and the ATF. We talked about that, but some of these smaller agencies are showing up as well. Pasadena, we're seeing a lot of vehicles come this direction because everybody knows everybody. It's like a family, if you will, all the law enforcement in the entire city. So this entire area, this is right off of what they call Sheriff's Way. It's a huge facility. There is a training facility in this area, but that's not the training facility. We talked a little bit about that. It could have been training, but it seems somewhat unlikely to do training at 7:30 in the morning without any safety equipment, and it's not at the actual training facility. It's actually where they keep the bomb squad vehicles. Underneath that tarp right there is where they keep the armored vehicles, the SWAT vehicles. You see an ambulances there. They're always standing by. But they cleared the area out very quickly, Philip and Colleen, because they didn't really know exactly what they were dealing with. One person did go in and cover the bodies, and then they came right back out. But now we're seeing some activity. It looks like LAPD bomb squad detectives and officers are now approaching and evaluating the scene. It doesn't appear that they have any threat or any concern there's going to be a secondary explosion. Now they're just in the process of trying to figure out exactly what happened here. Such a tragedy, but it has to be a tragedy that they learn from, and they make sure that nothing like this happens again.
Okay. Scott, thank you. Scott's going to stand by because we are going to wrap up this streaming broadcast, this version of it. We are about to start Eyewitness News at 11 a.m. We will, of course, continue to update this, continue to follow what has happened here at the Sheriff's Department. Bomb Squad is there, LAPD, to assist. But Colleen and I are going to step away for just a second, and we will resume with Eyewitness News at 11 a.m. in about 30 seconds.